what I mean by that is geeks know what tomorrow is. It's especially the Apple fans, and JT knows what tomorrow is. Tomorrow is Apple's annual iPhone launch live stream event from Apple campus, aka the UFO. And Tim Cook and the regular cast, Kevin Lynch and everybody, will be on hand to do a live stream. And we will. We're just so fortunate how it works out timing wise every time they do these, because we do Tech News Around the World for about 3 hours starting now. We will do it again tomorrow like we always do, but at the end of the 3 hours the live stream starts, perfectly dovetailing right, transitioning right into their event, and we will watch it. And they are going to, we now have it on firm authority from none less than Mr. Kuo out of China, who always kind of has the best track record of predicting these things, that it's going to be the iPhone 13, all 4 flavors, with a new upgraded camera, upgraded battery, upgraded screen, most notably, with a new operating system, but also the new iWatch 7 with a bigger and flatter screen, and then a new iPods 3 is now confirmed by Kuo, and the MacBook Pro 14 and 16 inch with the M1X processor. So please do join us tomorrow. We're going to do Tech News Around the World. We'll watch the live stream, and then we have your credit card or your actually Apple's offering buy now pay later, so you have no excuse not to get yourself and your loved ones their Christmas gifts right at the end of the live stream. Tina?
So have you heard that they're actually not going to call it the 13? They're going to call it the 14 and skip 13 like elevator floors do?
No. We made a joke about that last time we were here, but
they'd be falling right into a trap because Asians hate 14, so they might as well jump to 15.
Well, they would have skipped. They would have. Okay. Well, they did skip. What was it? 9. Strangely. So that was a really weird one. But yeah, so it's not unprecedented, but I don't think they would skip it. There's been
They announced the 14 is going to be next year. They've already pre-announced what their plans are for 14. So this is going to be 13.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There you go. So it'll be fun. We're looking forward to that already. So let's jump into the big headlines as we usually do. The top headline at this very moment is from Bloomberg, from their resident geek, Mark Gurman, who says what to expect at the Apple September 14 event. Narrower iPhone 13 notch, the LTPO display on the iPhone 13 Pro models, which they have 2 different sizes, same like the iPhone 12. It's essentially the same 4 phones, 2 Pros, 2 not, but this LTPO screen requires less power, and you can do higher refresh rates. So it'll have a 120 hertz refresh rate instead of the 90 that all the iPhones have now. 120 is noticeable. It creates a much better experience, and it's one of the things that Apple really lags behind with the other flagship phone makers. It really gives a better user experience. It doesn't feel like this digital flickering thing. It feels like a real device. And also on the phone, that display could have an always-on display because it uses less power, and it has a notably bigger battery. So with the combination of those, they might just leave that screen on. That'd be kind of neat because you would save a half second every time you look at your phone. And then the redesigned Apple Watch 7 will also has LTPO, but it did on the 6, so it's always on like it was on the 6. Bloomberg is saying no M1X MacBook Pros. Oh, that sucks.
I think they're going to have to split the events. You're going to hear at the end they're going to do another one.
Yeah, 2 3 weeks. I was thinking the same, because we know for a goddamn fact that they're doing the phone and the watch. That's good as gold. The AirPods 3 is also incredibly likely. And then the idea that you could have that and laptop, that's a full event right there with those 3 in terms of the time that they've scheduled for the event. So I was a little curious, how the hell are they? They're not going to have time to also do laptops. So the fact that Bloomberg says no laptops,
They
kind of,
split it in 2012 when the iPad Mini or whatever came out. They
yeah,
had to do two events because they had too much in the pipeline. So
yeah. But the new,
Tyler, I don't know.
yes,
I
Ben.
found this. I found the reason this is not right. I can, if you want me to tweet it out for
Sure, go
you.
ahead.
The original press release. Walmart announces major partnership. Yada yada. Is signed by a guy called William White at WalmartCorp.com. Now, WalmartCorp.com has only recently registered domain name. It's got nothing to do with the corporation. So it's a fake release, probably a pump on the Litecoin.
Wow.
It'll
Holy
dump just
shit.
as
Genius
quickly.
pump. Short that shit. Go, 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 go,
Yeah, no,
go.
or the big, yeah, the traders in the Bitcoin
Steep
rooms are already
decline.
doing that. But the
Yes.
scary thing is that even
Steep
Reuters don't
decline.
check this shit. This is the world we live in, right? And then we go, oh, it's okay because Reuters have. If news is going for accuracy over speed over accuracy, and it's becoming really endemic. So I will
wait,
tweet
Ben,
you the
you're
source.
saying the release
Thanks a
actually
lot.
was
I
a
just
But
bought
fake?
that's a little bit
$1,000 in Litecoin.
nerve-wracking, though, that they would use someone's name of the CEO, especially in Decrypt, which is where I found it. I didn't see it on
No,
Reuters. I saw it on
he might
Decrypt.
not. What Ben's saying is there's a company called WalmartCorp.com that this guy is the president of, and they signed a deal with Litecoin. Reading and comprehend, like watching what you read, I think would
Yeah,
be a
well,
good lesson here, right?
but
It
that's what
was.
I find really fascinating because we're having worked in fashion and FMCG. It's not uncommon that, like, for example, Estee Lauder is the umbrella for 12 other companies. So Estee Lauder is a parent company, but if they want to do something different that their shareholders don't want to know about or might not approve, they can potentially in the United States split off the company in a way that allows them to have another arm that's under the formal umbrella. So I would still go a little bit deeper to see who that person is,
I
because
will.
if the person's an employee.
It. Yeah, it just kind of doesn't matter. Somebody wants to pump Litecoin, they do this crap. I mean, at the top of my Twitter now, you just look at the bottom of the original release. You've got the website points to corporate.walmart.com. Cool. Well, that's Walmart, but it's from William White at walmart-corp.com. If you do a who is on walmart-corp.com, please don't trust, verify. That domain was registered in August. 17th of August this year. And that is not Walmart. This is a clear pump and dump. Litecoin will drop straight back down. It was obvious from the beginning that Walmart would not choose fucking Litecoin in
Well,
any
actually, I wouldn't
circumstance
necessarily say that,
unless
Ben.
they're
Walmart's a bit
completely
strange.
insane. They would not choose a
Well,
coin
look
that
at the
is
people that shop at
centralized.
Walmart. Let's leave it at that. Let's look at the
Yeah.
people that shop at
It's
Walmart.
Well,
already coming down. It's already coming
Maybe
down.
they're that
Pump and
stupid. Yeah.
dump.
Breaking news on tech news around the world.
There you go.
Yeah,
Well,
breaking and then
thank you, Ben.
unbreaking. That's the thing. So Litecoin cost only $190,000 an hour to take over the network with a 51% attack. That is not a strong enough network for, well, unless Walmart are very stupid. Our reaction was very simple. They haven't done their research. But the next reaction was it's fake. So anyway, it's fake news.
I wish Robinhood had short selling. I would be. Anyway, the next. Oh, we were talking about the iPhone 13 and the whatnot. That it's expected that the iPhone 13 Pro, the highest end model, could have a 1 terabyte drive space. What do we call it on a phone these days? I mean, technically, it's memory, but yeah, 1 terabyte of memory. So you can do a whole lot of photos. Also expected to be able to do what's called cinematic video, which is basically similar to how the iPhone 12 already has portrait mode, where it algorithmically blurs out the background for you to give you the impression that you have much better lenses on your device than you actually do. That effect for photographers is what's known as bokeh, where you have the foreground is sharp and in focus and the background is blurred. That's normally the depth of field is normally a function of a very nice lens, which the camera doesn't have. So they artificialize the effect algorithmically by blurring out the background. Quite clever. And that's just a photo, and that takes a minute to process one frame. If you have a really good processor, you can do it in real time in video. And that's what they apparently now have with the new processor. So you can, in real time, record video where the subject is in focus and the background's out of focus. And that makes you think that you're Martin Scorsese or, Michael Bay or what have you, that, you're now doing video with bokeh effect. And it makes it feel like you have a really nice camera. So get ready for a whole new bunch of iPhone-powered videos.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Ben, you are dead on, man. CNBC's reporting. Crypto payments announcement references non-working website. Litecoin gives up gain. Good effing job, Ben. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could have made a quick trade on that one.
I tried. It didn't work.
Yeah, no, Robin
This is why if you just got to understand a little more about the fundamentals of these fucking things. It's just not happening. It's so funny filtered through the lens of just having a small understanding of the foundation of this stuff. Nobody in the Bitcoin movement is like, why have they chosen? Well, not for long. Why have they chosen Litecoin? They're like, this is a mistake.
That was the first question I had. Is wait a minute, why would they do Litecoin?
Shit, Ben,
Cal's
Ben,
here.
you're a freaking hero. I just came in. I was watching Twitter.
Cal just lost all of his money buying Litecoin. What the hell just happened?
I was
They
watching
could have
CNBC.
chosen my B2B coin.
Wow,
By the
wow,
way,
Ben, what the heck?
Don't trust
This
Verify.
is tech
That's all I
news.
can say.
Yeah.
this is tech news for the exponential era, folks. Verified by some of the brightest minds on the planet that don't have any.
Then again,
motive
maybe
other
we
than
just need to let Walmart accept it so they could get out of our hair.
Yeah, maybe.
Or better yet,
There's some
Walmart.
truths about it, right? There's some truths that Ben works from fundamentals.
Yeah, but
This
10
is something that we've
10
got to
minutes from
understand.
now, Walmart could be like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go ahead and accept that Litecoin.
Exactly, but that's also part of it because it's a valve. The gentleman who started it was Charlie Lee, and that was someone that was very, very active in the space back in 2011. So it is something that he is obviously someone that people respect and recognize. And I mean, I've been in the space for a long time, and I do remember how people were very, very open and gregarious to him. And he was really a good guy. He is a good guy. So I would just say, from my context, Litecoin has always had a good, solid team behind them.
Okay, but who sent out that press release?
Well, I agree with Ben there. That's just crazy news, and this is what happens, and that's why we have this.
Globe Newswire, so it's not a very popular news.
Right, and who registered that website? An investigative journalist could hunt down whoever pumped and dumped this thing.
Any of the journalists along the way could have just done a who is. Only the word who is.
Now this is a good article. And by the way, we need because they're not going to self-incriminate as journalists, that, oh shit, we all fell for this. Somebody should list all of the journalists who fell victim to this.
And you know what's crazy? The press release is worded so cleverly because where they refer to corporate.walmart.com is when they say, when you want to find out more about Walmart, visit this site. Normally, you're expecting that hook to be, oh, if you want to find out details about this transaction, visit corporate.walmart.com. So your eyes see that and you're like, okay, this is a legit Walmart press release, but it isn't because the press release is just saying, if you want to find out more about Walmart, visit this link. So there's nothing misleading about that press release. Well, let's say the whole press release is misleading. There's nothing misconstrued in the press release because the words are factual. If you want to find out more about Walmart, visit corporate.walmart.com. If you want to ask me more about this particular press release, email me at theboguswalmart.com site. And that's how Ben found it out.
Yeah, everybody fell for it. I was watching CNBC and Kramer was talking about it, right? It was in the background. I was doing something else and Kramer was like, I don't believe this. I not believe this. This is useless. Litecoin? What the heck? And they were really cynical about it. I mean, and of course they're cynical about a lot of new things. And then my ears perked up and I looked at the Twitter feed and I followed Ben and I saw Ben's and I thought, shit. And I just came in here. This is what tech news is about. I mean, I just couldn't believe that none of these guys spotted it. CNBC as well. We got to be careful. Wow.
It's fairly shameful. There's journalistic crap, quality journalism.
The Reuters tweet is still up. I mean, just the Reuters post.
And whoever
is the price going down? No?
But in the press release, they use the logo. They use everything from Walmart.
They actually did this before the Bitcoin conference with the Winklevoss twins and the Gemini Exchange. They did a really, really brilliant copy phishing site. And people really aped into Gemini. And it was really funny because it wasn't Gemini's site. But still, it's also where, this is where you're sovereign over your own money. And you have to really be diligent in your critical deep dive research. And Ben went quickly to verify, which is fantastic. I didn't even bother to tweet it because I'm almost sure that someone was going to come forward like Ben and say that. So for me, it's
Well,
quite
then,
the interesting
yeah.
dynamic.
It's
And
almost
Litecoin,
entirely back to its previous price, by the way. I mean, the arse has fallen predictably
Lite,
straight back out of it.
Litecoin tweeted it as well from their verified account, which is so
Of course
strange.
they
Like,
would. These are all fucking Ponzi schemes. I'm telling you. I've been sitting here quite quietly for a long time in tech news, just waiting because the fundamentals of all these things are completely screwed. And what's going to happen is all these things are going to continue to happen. I don't really need to sit and pipe up and get excited about it, but it is very exciting when you actually see the fake news happening, the pumping and the dumping actually happen in front of your eyes. Yeah, and all you have to do is a who is. That's all you have to do. Just verify who owns these fucking domains. Simple.
Tyler, I just wanted to let you know there's breaking news in Sky is reporting that the medical directors of the 4 countries in the United Kingdom have now approved, just like US and Europe, to have kids from 12 to 15 vaccinated, even though the regulatory body had said that on health ground alone it wasn't available. I've sent it to you on back channel as well. So.
Okay, thank you for that. So how the brain? Okay, now I got a whole bunch of people sending in really good tweets here.
All right, so hang on 1 second. William White is the chief marketing officer for Walmart, and so that means that the registration of a domain name in August doesn't necessarily indicate that this is bogus. But if you looked at the
but it seems a fraud. It seems a total fraud. I mean, they use everything about Walmart, but there's nothing Walmart on there.
I get it. It's all about that domain. It's all about that domain. Ben, you're right.
The price is back to where it was before the announcement now. So, I mean, I'm not looking in dollars. I don't price anything in dollars. I price everything in Bitcoin. But the Litecoin Bitcoin pair is almost back to where it was.
Okay, are we ready? And I'm just retweeting Ben's tweet here from 10 minutes ago. And Evans and Cal's and okay. I think that gets us up to date. And then someone named John, just even after you guys tweeted that it's fake news, just tweeted that Reuters got egg on his face out of this. Walmart to accept Bitcoin payments from Reuters.com. So, somebody, like I said, somebody should make note of what kind of notable outlets actually fell for this, because it would be it's kind of damning on their reputations.
Reddit did a deep dive, and it is absolutely fake, based on the DNS and the name server registration. So, great job, Ben.
Yeah. Okay. So the next big article up, in sticking with the top 10 most tweeted articles, although this Walmart Litecoin thing certainly jumped up in the last few minutes, is Financial Times says they have sources that Beijing wants to break up Ant Group's Alipay, which is one of the two. Basically, China has two wildly, phenomenally large payment apps, and that's the way people pay for things. They're not using cash. They're not using credit cards. They're using Alipay or they're using WeChat Pay. And so Alipay was started by, obviously, Alibaba, but they created a separate company called Ant Financial, who owns Alipay. So now the Financial Times says they have sources that Beijing wants to break up Ant Group's Alipay, which has over 1 billion users, and create a separate app for the company's highly profitable loans business. Beijing wants to break up Alipay, the super app owned by Jack Ma's Ant Group that has more than 1 billion users, to create a separate app for the company's highly profitable loan business in the most visible restructuring yet of the fintech giant. Chinese regulators have already ordered Ant to separate from its main business the company's two lending units, Huabei, which is similar to traditional credit card, and Jibei, which makes small unsecured loans, into a new entity and bring in outside shareholders. Now officials want these lending businesses to have their own independent app as well. The plan would also require Ant to turn over the user data that underpins its lending decisions to a new and separate credit scoring joint venture, which would be partly state-owned. according to two people familiar with the process. Although we already knew that. We had heard that months ago, that they were going to use the data from Alipay to do a credit score, a state-owned credit score-like system. And this lines up perfectly with that. What's new here is that they're going to break this up into separate apps. And what is also assumed to be happening is that the traditional part of Alipay, which is not the loans, but just the means of making payments, that actually is the crown jewel that the CCP want to control, because they want to use the digital yuan, their central bank digital currency, but to make that get really broad instant adoption across China, they originally tried to make their own app that nobody had in their phones, that nobody's using. And then they realized, well, everyone's using Alipay. It has 1 billion users, right? Why don't we just take that and strip out the traditional payment mechanism and replace it with the central bank digital currency? So now you understand why they need to parse and break up the Alipay app. It seems one could I'm basically making the case that this is what they're doing makes sense based on what we were suspecting they had in mind. What they had in mind was to take over Alipay. We already had hints of this. We already predicted this, that they're going to use Alipay to roll out the central bank digital currency because it's such a wildly popular app, and no one was using the states-made little app that is used for the central bank digital currency, the digital yuan. So this fits nicely into that prediction. They're going to break out the other pieces of the app of Alipay into separate apps. So let's see when they finally make the announcement. By the way, Alipay does the central bank digital currency. That's just the last shoe to drop. That's the last piece we're waiting for. We already know they're using the data for they're merging it with a state-owned entity to do credit score for the folks. And we have to assume they're going to merge that data set with the social credit score, and your actual credit score will obviously or the transaction history data will become a variable in your social credit worthiness. Makes sense. So the next paragraph says, the government believes big tech monopoly power comes from their control of data. Yep. China understands that. China deserves a lot of credit for being the first government other than Estonia to really understand that. Kudos, China. You understand that data is power before all the other countries did, and you are concerned about power, and so you're rightfully concerned about data, and you're taking control of that data. So, makes sense. Said one person close to the financial regulators in Beijing. It wants to end that. So to read that paragraph again, I butchered it. The government believes big tech's monopoly power comes from their control of data, said one person close to the financial regulators in Beijing. It wants to end that. The move may slow down Ant's lending business, with the enormous growth of Huabei and Jibei partly powering its planned IPO last year. The credit tech unit, which includes the two units, overtook Ant's main payments processing business for the first time in the first half of 2020 to account for 39% of the group's revenue. The size of the unit, which helped to issue about 1/10 of the country's non-mortgage consumer loans last year, surprised regulators who fretted about predatory lending and financial risk. Okay. So that's just a quick update on that. There's a related article from the Financial Times that Cheryl shared with us on Friday last week, that there was rumors that the CCP was going to force Alipay and WeChat Pay to work together. And that was interesting because these apps don't. They have very walled gardens, just like Twitter and Instagram do. They don't play that nicely with each other. And historically, you can't really see Instagram photos in your tweets, right? Twitter intentionally doesn't show you the photo from Instagram. It shows you a link to Instagram, but not the actual photo. Because that would be too nice, wouldn't it? If you could just actually see the photo from Instagram on Twitter, or the YouTube video and a big play button, so you could just play it without, it just gives you this little link. It's just silly how these apps do this with each other, but China's no different. All these tech companies don't like promoting each other inside of their own ecosystems. And so, Cheryl, you remember you sent the link that the state was asking Tencent, the owner of WeChat, and Alibaba, the owner of the two payment apps, to play nice with each other. And so here it is in the Financial Times. The headline says, after a meeting with the Chinese regulators, Tencent and Alibaba pledged to make their apps and services compatible with each other. Tech rivals say they will comply with Beijing's order to give them access to their walled gardens. China's now here. Why is this interesting? This is super interesting, and it helps prove my previous prediction. Why? Here's why. Because these are not just any two ordinary apps. They just happen to be, what an interesting coincidence, the two biggest payment apps in all of China. And what did I just say that the state has in mind of doing with Alipay? It's going to use it to force them to use the central bank digital currency, the digital yuan, which is what their main issue. They are super gung-ho about getting the adoption of their digital currency in China. How do you do that? You take over the biggest fintech payment app that all Chinese people are using, 1 billion users, and you do, what in crypto land they call a rug pull. But you basically, push the distribution through that app. Now, what an interesting move that they're simultaneously, as that's about to roll out, forcing WeChat Pay and Alipay to work together. Oh, how interesting. Maybe because we're going to want citizens to be able to transfer central bank digital currency between these two apps. So China's two largest tech companies promised to open up their digital empires on Monday, a move that may reshape online life for hundreds of millions of users. For the past 8 years, Tencent and Alibaba have carved China's internet into two rival camps, replicating each other's services and blocking all interoperability between their platforms. Tencent's payment system cannot be used on Alibaba's sites and vice versa. Links to Alibaba's online shopping sites cannot be posted in Tencent's messaging app WeChat. Short videos from TikTok also cannot be posted in WeChat. But after being summoned to a meeting by the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology last week, like Friday, both companies said on Monday they will allow competitors to access their walled gardens. The meeting was also attended by TikTok, Baidu, NetEase, Huawei, and Xiaomi. We resolutely support the decision of the Ministry of Industry and Information and will implement it in phases, says Tencent. Alibaba said it will fully comply with the ministry's demands to end widespread practice among large internet giants of blocking consumers from links to other web services within their apps. Under pressure from the regulators, China's big tech companies have already started to work closely this year, and analysts said they are likely to accelerate their efforts to be compliant. Here's the quote: "The companies won't drag their feet implementing the new rules. The compliance process will be quick." The platforms are...
So technically there, just let me, so from a customer experience, Cheryl, is this the thesis, which makes sense actually, or Aaron might know, they wake up one morning and suddenly the wallet has changed in essence, like the wallet just has the digital yuan that they can basically keep on there. Is that kind of what will happen, or they'll roll it out with the different platforms, or they'll slowly start taking away the other things?
They've announced already, to partially answer your question, Cal, the state has said they're already testing with the two apps their digital currency. I believe it's only happening in Shenzhen at the moment.
Right, so they roll that out, and the rollout will be easier in a sense now because they're all collaborating.
Well, you'll remember, Cal, because I remember you were in the room when they said that they were forcing them to do this little test of their currency.
Yeah, I remember that a few months back.
Yeah.
So I wonder what that means for people that use it outside of China, who, so they don't have any yuan, but I wonder whether they will then be forced to use the digital yuan once this transformation takes place.
It's a great point, because if you look on the Wikipedia page for China's central bank digital currency, the digital yuan, it says that it's used by China and, interestingly, Thailand as a partner, and the UAE as a partner, which is very interesting because that's where they get a lot of oil. But the Thailand one is very interesting because Thailand uses Alipay. All the 7-Elevens and businesses accept Alipay and WeChat Pay. Everyone who's ever gone to a 7-Eleven knows that because it's right at the cash register at every 7-Eleven. And they do that because we have an incredible amount of Chinese folks who come here in droves. And this is why Lakeisha's question is so interesting, is because once, as Chinese tourists continue to come to Thailand, as they obviously will, what happens when they're using their Chinese central bank digital currency through Alipay and WeChat Pay at the 7-Elevens in Thailand?
They're in every 7-Eleven in the United States too.
But
I think I see
the point is, Thailand is a partner in the central bank digital currency of China. That's really, really, really interesting.
So Tyler, this is Monica. Couple of things that actually stand out to Cal's question is the fact that this is very much possible and it should not be a problem, because Alipay and WeChat Pay had extended their support a couple of months ago, where they actually said that they've been participating in the trials.
Yep.
From the user experience point of view, and from what you just mentioned, if Thailand is participating in the cross-border hub for the pilot, then I don't think that should be a problem either, because they are just acting as a pass-through for the transaction. So it should not be a problem, and in fact the user experience stays. So Cal, the reason I can say this confidently is that in India as well, the RBI, which is the central bank, has actually mandated that there will be no walled gardens anymore. Just like WeChat Pay and Alipay extended their dominance, now a person from Paytm should be able to send money to a person who's sitting say on a Google Pay, which is a completely different system, and that should ideally work, and that's been mandated, so it's being rolled out now. So the user experience remains the same for any user who wakes up in the morning, doesn't know what to do. It remains exactly the same. There's absolutely no change except for the back end.
Thank you, Monica. And there was another interesting Indian news that a few folks tweeted in, which was Ola, the electric scooter company that is raising a whole bunch of money to be one of India's new electric EV companies, announced that all of the workers at their massive new factory will be women from India, like 10,000 women, which is an interesting update on that one. Any other interesting fintech or Indian news lately, Monica?
There has been a bunch, but I'm going to have to recollect, and then I'll send it to you in the back channel in just a minute.
Okay. I was just thinking, whenever COVID comes to a rest, I'm thinking I want to do a big tech conference in India. So I messaged a few friends today, and we've got calls already scheduled for Wednesday, but just starting to let into the we got 400 people in the room here. So anyway,
I'm up for a physical conference. I'm up for a trip to India.
I'm thinking
at the right time.
Same here.
A big
Which city?
I see the reason to go.
Yeah, I'm thinking Bengaluru, but we'll see. Because I have Truecaller, our dear friends of mine, the two founders, and that's one of the top 5 apps in the App Store in India, and I know they'll be happy to join. And then Miss Melania, and we can get. I'm confident we can. The Minister of Innovation who came to my event in Sweden, I'm sure will be excited to support it, and we could get some cool stuff happening. But anyway, something tells me to do that. I feel a strong itch and urge to do that. So anyway, the next biggest article is from the Financial Times, and it says analysis that Ireland has failed to apply EU's privacy laws to US big tech companies, with 98% of significant complaints about privacy abuses still unresolved. Irish regulator has not resolved 98% of 164 significant data protection complaints. Ireland's failing to apply the EU regulations. Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, and Twitter all have their European headquarters in Dublin, making Ireland's Data Protection Commissioner the lead EU regulator responsible for holding them to law. But the Irish DPC, Data Protection Commissioner, has been repeatedly criticized both by privacy campaigners and by other EU regulators for failing to take action. An analysis by the Irish Council for Civil Liberties found that the vast majority of cases were still unresolved, and that Spain, which has a smaller budget than Ireland for data protection, produces 10 times more draft decisions. Johnny Ryan, senior fellow at ICCL, said Ireland was the worst bottleneck for enforcement of the EU's GDPR. GDPR enforcement against big tech is paralyzed by Ireland's failure to deliver draft decisions on cross-border cases. He added, noting that the rest of the EU has to wait for Irish draft decisions before they are able to take their own action against these companies. The Irish Regulatory Authority, headed by Helen Dixon, did not respond to a request for comment. Number 29, Cheryl. We got 29 in a row. No comment. So we count the no comments here for tech articles, and that's number 29 in a row. So what to make of this? Well, it's because Ireland wined and dined and red carpeted these tech companies to Dublin. In fact, a dear friend of mine was involved on that team, and he now does precisely the same thing for Sweden in Stockholm. But Patrick, so what? Yeah, Ireland doesn't want to penalize these big tech companies. Ireland really likes having these big tech companies there and likes being very friendly with these big tech companies. And we read a headline a week or so ago about a big fine for, who was it? Google or Amazon or Facebook, one of them. It was either Google or Amazon. And the EU was fining them. It was a lot of money. I don't know, $500 million or something tremendous for violating GDPR. And in that article, it revealed that Ireland originally wanted it to be far, far, far less. And the EU was like, no, boost, go way higher than what you were initially thinking the fine should be. No, we want it way more than that. And so they did. And then the EU ruled on it and the EU passed it. And Aaron, I imagine, might be familiar with this this story, or does somebody recall that headline from a week or so ago? There was two simultaneously. Both Amazon and it was either Google or Facebook both got big fines from the EU last week or in the last 2 weeks from GDPR. Anyway, and I remember commenting when we read that headline last week. I said exactly the same thing. I said, yeah, no, it's not a surprise to me that Ireland's initial penalty in this case was much lower than what the EU wanted to do, because Ireland isn't really in the business of trying to fine the tech companies based in Dublin. They're very happy to collect whatever taxes they had made the arrangement. And this is what people need to understand, is the backstory is Ireland wined and dined and red carpeted these companies in. It's not a coincidence that they're all based in Dublin. And if you're thinking to yourself, gee, I wonder if Dublin gave them a really sweetheart tax break, congratulations, give yourself a little pat on the back. You're not a stupid idiot. Yes, of course, Ireland gave them a sweetheart tax deal, and that's why they're all in Ireland. So then the EU comes along and goes, no more party. The party's over. Mom and Dad just came back from the weekend and found everyone partying over there in Dublin. Said the bar's closing. Put down that drink, young man, and
put down that double Irish with a Dutch twist.
Look at that Irish car bomb, they call them. Yeah. So that's a Guinness with a shot of whiskey inside the. You drop the shot right into the middle of the Guinness anyway in the pint. So the EU doesn't like all this whole arrangement of this friendly little.
So Tyler, do you think much of the audience is aware of the tax schemes that companies use in Ireland, or?
Generally, no, but I mean, I just explained it in a nutshell. My point is that the EU is not happy about it. The EU wants to tax the shit out of these big tech companies.
They have a scheme, and maybe Aaron, because I saw Aaron flashing the mic when I said the double Irish with a Dutch twist, but Ireland has unique laws where you can set up companies, and if you set them up in a way so that you have one in Ireland, one that goes to goes to Netherlands, and then comes back to Ireland, you get no taxes or something. That's what I understand. That's the attraction of Ireland.
And there's definitely
Ireland
something
and
that
Holland.
makes sense. To be fair, I think there's definitely something in that, Chris, in the sense that yes, it's been set up, and Ireland have had low corporate tax rates for years. I think part of this and what Tyler's saying is there's hands out front, which is look at me, EU, slap my wrist, I'm doing bad, and then there's hands out the back, which is okay, you're putting more silver across my palm, and both are true in the sense that it's the EU have to be showing because the corporate tax rates have been equalized across all the EU states now, and so from that perspective, Ireland shouldn't be putting its low corporate tax rate, but it's yet, and we know this, it's yet to obviously equal that out across the EU states, and so the EU needs to come out with these fines to show it. But Ireland's still getting obviously it's not a backhander, but it's still getting support from these large big techs that are driving its economy higher locally.
I think it's a holding company in the Netherlands and an operational company in Ireland.
That sounds right. So yeah, because they're operational in Ireland, and then it's called the Dutch sandwich or something, the Irish Dutch sandwich, and the Dutch part comes into play, and it's obviously not the operational bit, so it's probably the tax bit. But anyway, interesting that Ireland's not really eager to penalize American big tech companies on their GDPR issues, which the EU is just rubbing its hands, wanting that juicy revenue of all of those, GDPR penalties. And I wonder what the EU is going to do about it, because the article doesn't really say. They're just criticizing Ireland at this point. Okay, yeah, go ahead and criticize us. If there's no penalty, then we'll take the criticism. EU officials said that Brussels was limited in what it could do to force Dublin into action. There it is. EU privacy rules give the European Data Protection Board the power to act against data watchdogs at member state level, but its powers are limited, and it cannot force an authority such as the Irish DPC to do its job. Under current rules, Dublin is in the strongest position to force its own data protection agency to exercise its powers, the official said. However, the EU may, in theory, open infringement proceedings against a member state that doesn't bring in effective policies to safeguard privacy rules.
Tyler, you're absolutely right. It's the double Irish-Dutch tax loophole. I mean, they're saying, I think, what I've just researched quickly, Google said they've stopped it from last year. They've said they stopped it, and the Irish authorities are closing that loophole for having that, as Craig said, having the holding company in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not dissimilar to other countries. I mean, the UK, for example, there are some companies have a plate of where the company is headquartered, quote unquote, in London, when actually they've not got any staff in there. So it's all these corporate tax loopholes around the world that just keep on following these corporates around.
Yeah. And then next big article is from Bloomberg. It says Toast, which offers cloud-based restaurant management tools, is doing an IPO at a valuation of $16 billion. Epic has filed an appeal to Friday's ruling in its lawsuit against Apple with the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, one of the largest courts in the U.S. The court ruled.
Tyler, just a quick one.
Yeah.
On Toast.
Yeah.
Just before we move off, not giving anything away. I know the company personally. Big company. Keep an eye out for them. The kind of Shopify plus Squares of the retail businesses. They are embedded in retail from a finance perspective, both at the terminal side as well as giving companies finance. I think they're like a Stripe in real world for the future to watch.
Okay. So, Epic is filing an appeal. And then the next one's from Reuters, that a CRM software maker called Freshworks is aiming for a nearly $9 billion valuation in its IPO. The next one from Reuters, Coinbase says it plans to raise around $1.5 billion through debt offering to invest in product development and M&A. And then the Wall Street Journal says Apple's booming iPhone 12 sales have been driven in part by attractive offers from carriers to boost 5G, raising questions about how long such deals will last. Okay. Then the Washington Post is the next one, that Washington, D.C. Attorney General Karl Racine files an amendment antitrust complaint against Amazon, arguing it maintains a monopoly by locking wholesalers into anti-competitive agreements. Welcome to the Technology 202. So let's see here from Washington Post on this one. Well, your page doesn't want to load, Washington Times. Here it is. D.C. Attorney General Karl Racine. Now the Democratic Attorney General is widening the scope of the suit, accusing the tech giant Amazon of maintaining its monopoly by locking in wholesalers that provide the company with goods into anti-competitive agreements. And by the way, Chris, on this one it does say Amazon founder Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. In a newly filed amendment complaint shared with the Washington Post, the DC Attorney General alleges that Amazon has illegally stifled competition by requiring that the first-party sellers or wholesalers guarantee that the tech giant will make a minimum profit when it buys and resells their goods as its own. The Attorney General said his office uncovered through an investigation that the arrangements, quote-unquote, insulate Amazon's online marketplace from competition, further entrench its monopoly, and result in higher prices and less choice for consumers. We knew Amazon's anti-competitive behavior was far-reaching, and through our investigation, we're realizing just how far it goes, he says. According to the updated suit, the deals allow Amazon to lower its prices to beat out competitors and make the wholesalers who provide it with goods compensated for any lost profit. This, in turn, leads wholesalers to increase their prices elsewhere, very smart, including when sellers to Amazon's rivals, thus making it harder to compete with the e-commerce giant. If that's true, they could likely win this case, because that sounds like straight-up monopolistic behavior. The change adds a new dimension to the Amazon antitrust battles, where it will now need to beat back a fresh set of arguments for why it is a monopoly. It's the first major lawsuit in the U.S. to target the practice by Amazon, which has faced regulatory scrutiny over its dealings with third-party vendors. Critics have long said the company has strong-armed the latter into unfair deals and make it difficult for rival marketplaces to offer competitive prices. The update suit adds a new layer to that argument. Amazon spokesperson Jack Evans pointed to a past statement the company issued about the lawsuit. So they asked for a quote and they didn't get one. They got the spokesperson just referred to another headline. So I give ourselves 28.5 points on this one, Cheryl. So the previous statement said the DC Attorney General has it exactly backwards, according to Amazon. Sellers set their own prices for their products they offer in our store. The statement added, the relief the AG seeks would force Amazon to feature higher prices to customers, oddly going against core objectives of antitrust law. And so what Amazon's pointing out here is, well, so we may have a monopoly, but that we use that to lower the prices for everybody. So everyone gains by our monopoly. Normally in monopoly, this is a really funny, interesting aspect of e-commerce monopolies, is Amazon says, well, normally in a monopoly, the person who has a monopoly charges more, not less. What you're pointing out is what's causing us to lower prices. Our prices are too low is what you're complaining, that other people can't compete with our low prices. That's not what monopolies do. Monopolies raise prices. Got you. We're not a monopoly. Nice try. So it's an interesting point. They're using.
I was thinking the same thing. Is like, this is good for the consumer, even though it's good
right.
for Amazon.
That's why Amazon's very quick to point this out. Yeah.
Both, right?
Are you sure you want to break this up? We have the lowest prices that you're complaining our prices are too low. Are you sure you want to stop this? So it's a really clever aspect of the business model, essentially. So it's unclear to what extent, if any, those investigations have targeted Amazon's grip over the wholesale business, now under fire from Racine, but it hasn't gone unnoticed. Okay, well, I predict they're going to lose that one, but we'll see. Okay, next one up, Wall Street Journal. How Amazon would be affected by California's new bill aimed at regulating the company's use of productivity quotas in warehouses, the first bill of its kind. Oh, boy. 2 in a row for Amazon with government.
Well, the prices are going to raise for sure now.
Yeah. Or the robots are on their way. The online retailer relies on employees' high pace of work for its fast shipping. Yes, it does. Amazon's the nation's second largest private employer, with a majority of its nearly 1 million U.S. employees being warehouse staff, 950,000. California is taking aim at the grievances of some Amazon warehouse employees who have complained about the pace at which the company requires them to sort packages, injuries, and surveillance they face on the job. If enacted, a new state law would require Amazon to disclose any quotas it applies to workers in the state. A step the bill's supporters say would allow regulators to assess whether its employees have sufficient time for breaks, or if performance goals are affecting the health and safety of workers in other ways. The bill would be the first to require more transparency about the central facet of working for the tech giant, which has become the nation's second largest private employer. Amazon warehouse employers often refer to the sorting requirements as making rate. The company has long made performance quotas central to its operation, although it is said that the rate employees must meet varies based on the job and the experience level. The California legislature, which is dominated by Democrats, approved the bill this past week by Gavin Newsom, California governor, who faces a recall election on Tuesday, hasn't indicated whether he would sign the bill. The Democrat, well, he's not, because he doesn't want to get Amazon on his bad side. He doesn't want to get on Amazon's bad side. The Democrat has until October 10th to decide. If he is removed from office in the recall, his successor likely wouldn't take office until after the deadline. Amazon, which hasn't taken its own position on the bill, declined to comment. I think I know which side of the bill Amazon's going to be on. That's a stupid comment.
Well, a couple of things. We did this story a couple of days ago because I sent it to you, so it's not new. But I think Newsom's concern isn't really as much Amazon as it is. This bill is not just about Amazon. It would apply to other warehouses as well, and so there's oppositions from smaller businesses, which are much more numerous and have much more people actually vote in that state. So I think that's his
the next paragraph says, while it could affect numerous companies, as you said, Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez, the bill's Democratic author, has made Amazon the central focus in public statements about the legislation. Amazon.
Okay, so let me tell you who Lorena Gonzalez is. She's the same person who wrote the bill AB5 that Uber and Lyft got removed by a proposition. Yeah. So that's probably got him concerned too. Her track record isn't that good.
Amazon trails only Walmart as the largest private employer in the U.S., with the majority of its 950,000 U.S. employees being warehouse staff. As with many California laws, the bill could set a national standard given the state's size and political influence. Here's the quote. Increasingly, employers look to what Amazon does when implementing technology at their own facilities, says Ellen Reese, chair of the labor studies at the University of California, Riverside, and the lead author of the 2019 research paper that examined experiences of Amazon warehouse employees in the state. The pressure to make rates is very stressful, and for many warehouse workers, they have to cut corners in safety to make rates. Amazon's quotas play a significant role in the company's intricate logistics apparatus, which includes complex algorithms that measure productivity and keep the company's supply chain humming, along with machinery and robots that speed up Amazon's processes. It isn't clear to what extent the bill would harm Amazon, but the company could be forced to hire additional workers to keep it quick shipping times intact. If it were forced to lower quotas, greater investment into the workforce could pay off for the company long term, Ms. Reese said, since Amazon has struggled with higher turnover among its warehouse staff. To which I have to wonder, if they're going to employ more robots to keep the productivity up. This is the obvious I think Miss Reese here, Ellen Reese, as they referred to her as the chair of labor studies at University of California, Riverside. I think Miss Reese doesn't quite realize inevitably in the not distant future, this entire thing will be automated. It's a question of when. It's a question of time. It's not a question of if. And if this were to pass, it would actually accelerate the transition to autonomous. And as she says herself, she's even aware that if this passes, it's likely to cause them to need to hire more people to keep up their pace of delivery. Yes, she's right about that. But they're more likely to just employ more automation and more robots, so they were just never going to have to deal with this headache no more. And by the way,
they're just driving automation.
Right.
Yeah, I mean you can just imagine the meetings. We were having them here in Argos, the Argos warehouses 4 years ago. You sit down as soon as you had pressure from the unions, you put all the numbers through. You go, okay, next plan. How's the automation plan going? How's the automation plan? And that's what they're doing. It's just going to accelerate it. I don't know what obviously I know what their end game is, that they've got vested interest, all kinds of different power dynamics going on there, but it's not ultimately about about getting more jobs for workers, because that's not what's going to happen. It's going to get automated. What's
going to happen when it's fully automated? Are they going to regulate? No, you got to have humans.
That's interesting. A quota of human beings being employed in a company.
Yeah, no, you cannot have a fully automated business. You got to have humans in there. And they're like, okay, well, show me a human that can do what these robots do. No. You got to slow everything down. You got to hire people. I mean, let's think about that just for 2 seconds, because it's not just Amazon. It's back to Ken's point. The Uber and Lyft is going to get automated as well. What happens when Uber and Lyft and Amazon all automate in the next 3 years? They go all full in automation. What happens? You're going to have all...
I think Bill Gates talks about taxing the robots, so they're going to start just taxing them to distribute the income elsewhere.
You'll likely have not taxing, but it will be some extended like jobs through that labor, then it will be less of a taxation
what
as
about
it would be if you were buying from elsewhere.
You're going to have hackers that unionize the robots. And so it'll kind of be like a ransomware. It's like, listen, we've unionized your robots. If you want, you meet our demands, you pay us a monthly fee to unlock your robots. 2%.
Well, what Elon Musk has said, basically, he's saying you're going to end up, when you have much more automation, more robots, you're going to have some sort of guaranteed income from all these displaced people. So they'll probably come up with some sort of special taxes for the Teslas and the Amazons to say we need more taxes from you to just basically redistribute money to people who can no longer support themselves. Elon Musk has said that.
Yeah, he's not the only one. We will need a universal basic income because there'll just be not enough jobs. You won't need to work. So
a humoristic approach to this is that these guys at the Amazon, they must be a whiny bunch. We have all seen the pictures of their wonderful yoga boxes and contemplation boxes they've placed all over the houses. What do they actually require more, you wonder?
So the next one is from Variety, back in the headlines again. Credit rating giant TransUnion plans to acquire digital identity verification company Nustar for $3.1 billion in cash. So here's another, add this one to the list of identity verification. Why is TransUnion acquiring this? And again, I do not make up these top lists each day.
Nustar is all about telephone numbers, so they have a national directories of everyone's phone numbers, which are increasingly important for verification too. So
the credit rating giant TransUnion. So when you get your credit score, there's basically 3 companies that provide that. Yeah, TransUnion's one of them. So credit rating giant TransUnion announced a deal to acquire Nustar, an identity resolution company which tracks and aggregates consumers' digital activity for marketing and anti-fraud applications, for $3.1 billion in cash. The deal is expected to close in the fourth quarter of 2021, subject to its customary who cares, blah, blah. TransUnion expects Nustar's OneID platform, spelled ONEID, to help unify the digital identity capability TransUnion has built and acquired in recent years, including the TLO data assets and Fusion platform, the Iovation device reputation network, and the digital marketing capabilities of True Optic. TransUnion's deal will not include Nustar's security solutions following the sale of Nustar's marketing, risk, and communications deliveries, blah, blah, blah. For 2021, Nustar is projected to generate $575 million in revenue. And as digital commerce continues to grow globally, TransUnion's powerful digital identity assets, enhanced by Nustar's distinctive data and digital resolution capabilities, will enable safer and more personalized online experiences for consumers and businesses. The two companies' complementary businesses, products, and relationships will offer benefits for our combined customers, employees, and other stakeholders across a diverse set of markets. Here's what I think's going on. I think buy now, pay laters and fintechs and other apps are using TransUnion credit scores in ways that people don't know they're having their credits checked. I think digital banks, neobanks, I think there are products and services out there that are using TransUnion to do credit scores because they need that as an important, like buy now, pay laters. I think buy now, pay laters, all that of which we're seeing all of them. I think they run your credit score when they figure
Well,
out.
by the way, if they do that, so many people now have these services, and many people have these services because they've been hacked, so they get the services for free. If TransUnion runs your credit score, even if it's not being done by a buy now, pay later, it's being done by a third party, it's going to show on one of your alerts.
Yes,
People,
for,
at some
for
point that will come
for
down
those
to
who
it.
subscribe to those alerts, which is one in
I thought the
a
value
million
of
people.
buy now, pay later is that you don't need credit scores. They look for alternative sources of data.
I don't think it's necessarily buy now, pay later company. Somebody's paying a whole bunch of money to TransUnion, and TransUnion realizes, this Neurostar identity verification piece would enrich our product offering to our, customers, whoever they happen to be. Perhaps companies like buy now, pay laters, or neobanks, people signing up for bank accounts or what have you. So, it's a win-win. It makes the offering that they
And
have.
Nustar is unique because they can link you as a person to your phone number. That's what Nustar brings, and your phone number, as you know, with two-factor, and is like your gateway into a million services. So it's really an important component.
It's an
Hey,
interesting.
Tyler, the Wall Street Journal is breaking news on Facebook. You want me to
Go.
hold on a second? Okay. Yeah, so it says Facebook. Okay,
Go ahead.
Facebook documents reveal a secret elite that is exempt from its rules. Mark Zuckerberg has publicly said Facebook allows its more than nearly 3 billion users to speak on equal footing with the elites of politics, culture, and journalism, and that its standards of behavior apply to everyone, no matter their status or fame. In private, the company has built a system that has exempted high-profile users from some of its rules, according to company documents reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. At times, the documents show the system has protected public figures whose posts contain harassment or incitement to violence, violations that would typically lead to sanctions for regular users. A 2019 internal review of the program, marked attorney-client privileged, found such favoritism to be widespread and not publicly defensible. In a written statement, Facebook spokesman Andy Stone said criticism of the program was fair, but added that the system was designed for an important reason: to create an additional step so we can accurately enforce policies on content that could require more understanding. Facebook knows in acute detail that its platforms are riddled with flaws. He didn't say this. This is now the Wall Street Journal. Facebook knows in acute detail that its platforms are riddled by flaws that cause harm in the real world, according to an extensive array of internal company communications reviewed by the journal. Moreover, the documents show it often lacks the will or ability to address them. This is the first of a series of articles based on these documents and interviews with dozens of current and former employees. And then it goes on, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
So
The Wall Street Journal, I just tweeted out the link, and it says the first thing you see is a full black screen with a little bit of text in the middle, which is quite dramatic. I like how these old school publications are starting to get stylistic with their articles here. It says, there's a huge quote. It says, "We are not actually doing what we say we do publicly." And then the next, you scroll down, and then it says again, all black screen, one quote in the middle of the page: "Facebook routinely makes exceptions for powerful actors." And then there's a third one: "The problem is pervasive, touching almost every area of the company." And then the article starts with the headline: "Facebook says its rules apply to all. Company documents reveal a secret elite that's exempt. The program, known as XCheck, has given millions of celebrities, politicians, and other high-profile users special treatment, a privilege many abuse." Mark Zuckerberg has said publicly, Facebook allows its more than 3 billion users to speak on equal footing with the elites of politics, culture, and journalism, and that it stands for behavior apply to everyone, no matter their status or fame. In private, the company has built a system that has exempted high-profile users from some of or all of its rules, according to company documents reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. The program, known as Crosscheck or XCheck, has initially intended as a quality control measure for actions taken against high-profile accounts, including celebrities, politicians, and journalists. Today, it shields millions of VIP users from the company's normal enforcement process, the documents show. Some users are whitelisted, rendered immune from enforcement actions, while others are allowed to post rule-violating material pending Facebook employee reviews that often never come. At times, the documents show Xcheck has protected public figures whose posts contain harassment or incitements to violence, violations that would typically lead to sanctions for regular users. We are not actually doing what we say we do publicly, said the confidential review. It called the company's actions a breach of trust and added, unlike the rest of our community, these people can violate our standards without any consequences. It called the company's actions a breach of trust. Facebook breaching trust. Now this, folks, is a scandal. Holy cow. Facebook is so incredibly trusted that we are shocked, absolutely shocked by this breach of trust of Facebook following the news 12 hours ago that they also were not, they were, despite their claims that they were helping researchers with all of the data that they needed to do research, it turns out they were only given half of the user data that they claimed to be giving. So twice in one day, they're breaching trust. And stay tuned tomorrow for Facebook's upcoming saga of fuck all you all. We are shady, the shadiest company in tech.
Well, the journal said this is the first in a series of articles. So there's articles back of this one.
Did we not read a headline yesterday about Facebook violating trust, about the journal academic researchers, and Facebook said that they were nicely complying by providing the data, and then it was now been revealed. And by the way, it was the hilarious quote in that article that we read 8 hours ago was one of the researchers said, we kind of knew better than to trust Facebook. We kind of thought maybe, is this data really all the data that Facebook says that it's all the user data that they're giving us to do this research? And then sure enough, and the data, this was from 2019. So basically every report you've ever read about Facebook user behavior since 2019, the Facebook intentionally cherry-picked the data, the user data that they gave those researchers, claiming we gave them all the data, and in fact they did not. They gave them half.
People should have known that. And the other thing on the data, they should have known that from the beginning. Think about it. The data is so important, as you always point out. Why would Facebook give out data?
Of course, they couldn't. Not
right without a subpoena. Because first of all, I mean, it's like then your competitors get to see the stuff too. So it makes no sense.
Right, but yet we want to do the world's currency through our new digital payment system called Novi. Please do use our online wallet as your new digital bank account. You can sign up now. You can trust us.
Yeah, but there's one thing you're forgetting about that.
Trust me, you can trust us.
They've got $68 billion in cash. I looked the other day on this. $68 billion in cash on hand, and that's an audited number. So I would trust their, digital, whatever you want to call it,
stable coin,
stable coin, more than the most of the other stable coins, because they actually have the dollars to back it up. Very important.
Yes. So the question is, what would they be doing with the data of your purchases? Is the more interesting question. So, Facebook, what are you doing? Another day, another article abusing trust, and my God, it just doesn't end. I mean, this is just the company's just, and this is not. This is, I mean, my buddy Jason Calacanis has been painfully documenting the shadiness of Facebook since 2007. I mean, in 2007 he was writing blog posts about you cannot trust this company. This is just clearly shady behavior driven from the top. I mean, a company who consistently does this month after month for a decade, it's just systemic kind of sociopathy, corporate sociopathy.
And Tyler, I'll tell you something else.
Remember what Zuckerberg said, early on, wasn't it like 2007 or something, when people ask him why people give you your data, remember his answer?
Yes.
That's the guy. That's the guy that we all want to trust. That's the problem, right?
What did he say? Remind us.
No,
he says they trust. He said no. The question is, why are they signing up? He's like, I don't know. They trust me, the dumb fucks. He's
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
Say it. I can't say it.
Yeah. No. I didn't mean you to use the F word. I wanted to remember. Yeah.
No, but Tyler, there's another important thing about this. Remember Trump's lawsuit that he had that big. This is after he left office, and it was a big thing he announced that he thought that the Section 230 could be a First Amendment violation, and he was making the case that because 230 was a congressional law, because the First Amendment only is a restriction on the government. Okay, he's saying because the government gave them this legal protection, it now basically has brought the First Amendment into play. This particular disclosure, I think, actually strengthens Trump's case. By the way, if they're not treating people equally in terms of their policies, it really does strengthen Trump's case about protection on 230.
Yeah, I understand your point. So The Verge has made a new article that says Litecoin saw a price spike by 20% after several news outlets published reports that Walmart would begin accepting Litecoin based on fake press release. So that's just an update on that one. Antitrust lawyers say the judge's recent ruling in the Apple versus Epic presents challenges for the Department of Justice's investigation, as Apple was not found to violate the Sherman Act. Mozilla says it has bypassed Microsoft's cumbersome method for switching browsers in Windows 11, letting users set Firefox as the default browser. And weeks after forcing GrooveBot offline, Google is doing the same to Rhythm, a bot with 560 million plus users that lets Discord users play music from YouTube videos. And Coinbase says it plans to raise $1.5 billion. We covered that. Recur, a service that lets users buy, collect, and resell NFTs, raises $50 million. We covered Toast. CRM software maker Freshworks is aiming at a nearly $9 billion IPO. Any other good ones? Bilogram from Stockholm, which has built service for third parties to handle recurring payments, raises $45 million from Partech out of Paris. I happen to know Boris at Partech, and Bilogram launched at my event when they were just the founders on stage, and it was a very good pitch. And I remember thinking I should invest in that startup, and now I'm really wishing I had done that. Payments, the funding is coming from single investor Partech and will be used to help the Stockholm-based startup expand from its current base of Sweden to 6 more markets. Bilogram CEO and founder said in an interview to cover more of Germany, where it's already active, Norway, Finland, Ireland, France, Spain, and Italy. The company got its start working with small and medium businesses in 2011, but pivoted some years later to working with larger enterprises. I'm trying to remember why. I don't even remember the main bit of the pitch about Bilogram and why I liked it so much. Let me pull up there. It said that Bilogram's not likely to move into debt collection. General partner Bilogram having spotted a gap in the market. I think it allows them to collect on their invoices earlier, if I remember correctly. Oh no, is this it? Netflix subscription?
Have you discussed the Monero thing with Darknet?
No.
Okay. Apparently, Darknet is all switching over to Monero as the coin instead of Bitcoin and Litecoin. I sent that to TNW about 6 hours ago. Sorry for that, Johan.
Okay. So Bilogram, intelligent invoicing. Bilogram's platform for... one second. Bilogram's invoicing and payments platform automates customer management, prevents churn, and increases revenue. Interactive digital format replaces the traditional invoice. We offer new, easy-to-use payment methods to get companies their money faster and improve customer experience. Friction-free payments results. Okay, so the next one, that's all of the big headlines. with one exception. The very last one, from Mark Suster, my buddy Mark, from the biggest VC in LA, wrote a blog post that's gone a bit viral called "A Look at the State of the VC Industry from Overpaying in the Face of Absurd Valuations to Big Bets on Decentralized 3.0 Apps, Cybersecurity, and More." And the essence of this article is that that the government tech is going to get very big, is one of his main conclusions here, because now that the government understands data is important, they've got a lot of money to spend. And they do, and they overpay. So government tech is going to be huge, and he's right about that. And he also believes green tech is going to be huge. So that's the big articles that everyone's tweeting and sharing at the moment. So now we can get into all of the tweets that everyone's been twatting on Twitter since we met 8 hours ago, like this one from BB from Reuters, that a Dutch court rules Uber's drivers are employees, not contractors. A Dutch court on Monday ruled that Uber drivers are employees and not independent contractors, and are covered as such by labor laws. And latest setback for a company in the gig economy. It was another court victory for unions fighting for better pay and benefits for those employed in the gig economy, and followed a similar decision this year about Uber in Britain. The Amsterdam District Court sided with the Federation of Dutch Trade Unions, which had argued that Uber's roughly 4,000 drivers in Amsterdam are employees of the taxi company and should be granted benefits in line with the taxi sector. Uber said it would appeal against the decision and has no plans to employ drivers in the Netherlands. We are disappointed with the decision because we know that the overwhelming majority of drivers wish to remain independent, said Maurits Schoenfeld, Uber's general manager for Northern Europe. Drivers don't want to give up their freedom to choose if, when, and where they work. The court found drivers who transport passengers via the Uber app are covered by the collective labor agreement for taxi transportation. The legal relationship between Uber and these drivers meets all the characteristics of an employment contract, the ruling said. Due to the judge's ruling, the Uber drivers are now automatically employed by Uber, says the deputy chairman. As a result, they will receive more wages and more rights in the event of dismissal or illness. No, Uber's just going to stop doing business in that city, you dumbass. What an idiot these people are. I mean, either that person actually believes what they said and they're a complete dipshit, or they know that Uber's going to leave as a result of this ruling, and that's what they actually wanted, was Uber to leave. But they're not going to hire them as employees. That's not likely to happen. Uber's drivers are in some cases entitled to back pay, the court said. The judge also ordered Uber to pay a fine of $58,000 for failing to implement the terms of the labor agreement for taxi drivers. But as they said, they're going to appeal. I wonder, and they're going to delay. I mean, they're going to stretch out the appeal process for as long as they can, because they're only, a year or two away from handling, having cars. There's no shortage of cities currently doing autonomous driving. So within small geographies like Amsterdam, you could map that thing out. You don't need to make a level 4 autonomous cars to do all of the entire world. You just need to optimize your algorithms for the city of Amsterdam. Boom, now you've got autonomous taxis in Amsterdam. And they could do that in 2 years. So,
Tyler, I think it may also be another issue, right? Because I don't think Uber's profitable yet. So if they were profitable, if you were highly profitable and you got some onerous government, regulation, you might say, okay, we'll eat it and we'll just have lower margins. We'll just a little bit make a little less money. But if you're still hemorrhaging money, you certainly can't afford any more costs. So that's one of the reasons I think you're right. They'll have to shut it down.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, this is my point is, we're going to, hey, we're a union. Hey, we're a union. We're going to help you out. We're going to get you more pay. Oh, we got you all fired. Sorry about that. Oh, shit. Our bad. So
isn't that what unions have done for like 50 or 60 years or more in the United States? How many jobs that they've managed to lose in the private sector here?
But I can't imagine they would waste their resources, because they get paid as a percentage of the employee. They get 2% of the collective employees. That's how the unions get paid. So it's in their interest that these people actually do become employees, because that's how they're going to get paid. If Uber stops doing business, they just went through all this headache for nothing. And of course, Uber's thinking, if you unionize us in Amsterdam, now you're going to try it in Stockholm and Berlin and everywhere else. Fuck that. We're just going to shut down Amsterdam as a signal not to try it in other cities.
Are the taxi drivers unionized?
I imagine they are. I mean, it implied so in this article.
I mean, that's often their motivation, is just protecting the established.
Right. I get that.
Drivers.
Unions. Yeah. I get that. But with what happens with autonomous vehicles in 2 years?
They'll be against those as well.
No doubt they'll try to be. It says, in March, Uber said it would improve workers' rights, including minimum wage for all of its more than 70,000 British drivers. After it lost a Supreme Court case in February, Uber recorded $600 million in first quarter charges to account for the UK benefits, highlighting the federal toll, or the financial toll, of wider changes to its contractor model. Unlike in other European countries and the United States, UK employment law offers a unique worker status, a legal definition that situates drivers between independent contractors with no benefits and full-fledged employees with extensive benefits. Uber has advocated for similar in-between status in other countries, but said those initiatives would require changes to employment laws. Uber in February released a white paper that called on EU regulators to recognize the value of independent contracts in job creation as they consider new rules to protect gig economy workers. Here's a quote from Uber CEO. We believe in a new approach as possible, one where having access to protections and benefits doesn't come at the cost of flexibility and of job creation. The company is pushing for similar models in the US and Canada, where it faces dozens of lawsuits over the status of drivers. Uber in May faced a legal setback when the United States Supreme Court rejected its bid to avoid a lawsuit over whether drivers are employees and not independent contractors. But the company and other gig economy companies scored a decisive win in California last year when the majority of the state's voters passed a company-sponsored ballot measure that cemented workers' status as contractors, albeit with some benefits. Gig companies in some U.S. states are also trying to strike deals with labor unions. It's a race to automation. And now you know why so many investors are pouring billions into these autonomous technologies. Because...
But Tyler, I think to me in general is people need to have income, right? If you look at Amazon, like 85% of the households having Prime membership, you need to have people to have a purchasing power. Otherwise, I mean, if everything gets automated, who's going to buy?
Right,
who's going to be your customer?
Right. If everyone's out of a job by automation, then who's going to buy the stuff?
They're two separate things, though, right?
People...
Yeah, sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your point.
No. I was going to say that the rich people, on top, whatever, we call them 10% or whatever, they don't buy this much stuff. They are very small. It is the masses. It's like the lower middle income, the middle income that buys all this crap good things that gets produced. So we need to have a consumer base, really. If everybody's out of job, then who buys it?
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
Uber
So no, I was just gonna say, Messi, the two separate big issues we're going to have to address, right? So this automation thing is not going to go away, and in some ways, these unions have to understand that, or at least just not be dumb enough to know that they're going to basically accelerate it by some of the actions. And then the other side, which is, people are trying to think about solutions there around universal basic. We've had a massive experiment in the UK with universal basic income, in essence, by having this 80% of salary paid for everyone during the pandemic. And it's kind of interesting if they want to research that and see that as an experiment and then come out of it in terms of how quickly people are coming back to work or not coming back to work. We've got people not wanting to go back to work right now because 50-50, I'm using that. I don't even know if it's 50-50, but some because they're still a little wary of the working conditions of coming back. They're kind of getting used to working from home. Perhaps a little bit reluctant to change the lifestyle they've now got as a result of being at home and all the things around it. And then the other side is that they literally want to go off and do something else and earn more money and learn more skills. So but all this time they were paid universal basic income. So I imagine, I'm using that phrase, but it's 80% of their salary in the UK. US was different. It was stimulus checks and it wasn't large amounts of money and a bit more complicated. But the UK, they literally got a salary, like 80% of their salary.
But Cal, what was
For
it? Was that in the UK? That was paid through debt. They didn't raise taxes
Oh,
on the
no,
company.
exactly. No, I
Yeah,
agree. I agree.
GP.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. The way the government funded that is, and so in what I'm saying in terms of the way that people were behaving, I think we can look at that and perhaps we've got to come up with some solutions now. That's a bigger discussion, broader than this discussion here. But Messi, you're right. The economy is going to have to continue. People have to spend, but there's a one-way track to efficiency and automation that it's just not. They can't reverse it, can they? We can't create jobs, or can we? I mean, we tried to do that with the coal mines in the UK here way back. Let's keep them going so people would have jobs in the north of the UK. I mean, they just couldn't do it, politically or any other way. So yeah, there's two different things, I think, and I think the unions are on the wrong path of trying to reverse it in a way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Cal,
It's
there
also
is. I mean, I wouldn't say call it creating jobs, but if you think about what happened with the auto unions in the United States, and I am not suggesting this as a solution. I'm just saying it's been done. When they had these layoffs and they didn't really want to lay them off, and the unions worked out contracts that said you can't lay these people off, they had the workers come in every day and they clocked in and they paid and they played Trivial Pursuit, literally, but they got paid.
Fair point. Our teachers haven't been working for quite a while. I'm saying that as somebody who taught in the schools and saw it myself firsthand. So BB just sent one in that they say is breaking news. Just happened hours ago from Reuters. The headline reads, Disgruntled China Evergrande investors crowd headquarters in protest. The chaotic scenes erupted at the headquarters of a cash-strapped developer, China Evergrande. Is that the largest real estate developer? Is that who I think it is? BB? If somebody can Google China Evergrande, I'm almost certain it is. Here we go. Here's the article from Reuters. Disgruntled China Evergrande investors crowd headquarters in protest. From Shenzhen, China, a chaotic scenes erupted at the headquarters of cash-strapped developer, yes it is, China Evergrande Group, on Monday, as roughly 100 disgruntled investors crowded its lobby to demand repayment of loans and financial products. Around midday, more than 60 uniformed security personnel formed a wall in front of the main entrances to the glistening tower of the southern boomtown of Shenzhen, where protesters shouted at company representatives. A company as big as yours, how much money has been swindled from ordinary people, a woman said to Du Liang, identified by staff as general manager and legal representative of Evergrande's wealth management division. In the early hours of Monday, Du read out a proposal for repayments for holders of wealth management products, according to financial media outlet. But protesters at the company's headquarters appeared to reject it. They said repayment would take 2 years, but there's no real guarantee, and I'm worried the company will be bankrupt by the end of the year, said a protester surnamed Wang, who said he works for Evergrande and has invested $15,000 with the company, while his relatives invested about 10 times that, $150,000. Evergrande late on Monday said online speculation about its bankruptcy and restructuring was totally untrue. The company was facing unprecedented difficulties, it said in a statement, but would do everything possible to resume work and protect the legitimate rights and interests of its consumers. Several protesters said Du had remained in the lobby overnight. He was seen sitting on the ground and slumped against a wall on Monday, visibly exhausted. Protesters took it in turns to air grievances, and at one point a woman in the crowd collapsed. The mood was tense, with protesters attempting unsuccessfully to push through a security line blocking access to its elevators. Evergrande, give us our money back, they chanted. Three company representatives, including Du, did not respond to questions from Reuters. 29 and a half, Cheryl. Evergrande's media relations office and police in Shenzhen did not immediately reply to requests. 30 and a half. The protest comes amid worries the country's most indebted developer, with liabilities of $300 billion, will be unable to repay investors and that its debt woes could pose systemic risks to China's financial system. So, Cal, we had a friend from China tell us about when we were trying to wonder which Chinese companies to short. A friend of ours from Beijing gave us the name of two companies. Was not one of those two companies?
Yeah, I think this was on the list.
Evergrande.
Yeah, I'll look back at the things. It was certainly in this industry.
It was,
and I'll look back. It might have been Cheryl. It might have been on the list.
Yes, I believe that it was.
Yes, we had some. Hey, by the way, two things. I just saw Akil come back.
Oh,
the guy's married, right? I haven't seen him for weeks.
Well, in December, I believe he's getting married.
Akil, my friend.
Where's Akil?
Welcome.
Is he on stage? Oh, he's on stage.
Yes, Akil.
He's on stage. You found your loved person on
love of his life.
Your love of your life on Clubhouse, right?
Oh, no, on tech news around the world.
On tech news around the world.
Yeah. Carl, it happened. Finally happened, Carl.
My goodness, gosh. Well done. People who don't know Akil, he's one of the OGs. And Bibi, you've got a T-shirt that says Tech News on there.
Yes, she did.
Yeah, it's a proof that Tyler's online shop works, so everybody can get their own. And I got a chance to the hoodies when
very good
comes.
salesman. Very good sales.
Hey Tyler, when is the birthday of Tech News around the world? We should all get a Tyler's T-shirt.
I believe it was like
he's angling for a free one, Tyler. He's angling for a free one.
We could give a free shirt, but I want to confirm that our friend predicted that this company was going to collapse. Actually, so but the real estate companies in China are incredibly hard hit. This is China's biggest real estate company, 300 billion in debt. The photos are quite hysterical from the article. I believe BB sent this one in. She did. Sorry, I didn't tweet it out. There, now I've tweeted out. And have a look at that photo, the cover photo of that story. It's that's
yeah, because local. Actually, we have a forum here. So originally, actually, our own forums is faster than the news. But finally, the English version is here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, originally I was trying to give you some Chinese news here.
Yeah, there was one particular line in that article that was really heavy. That it could here. The protest comes amid worries that the country's most indebted property developer, real estate developer, with liabilities of $300 billion, will be unable to repay investors, and that its debt woes could pose systemic risks to the Chinese financial system. That's heavy. Heavy shit going down with the.
And it's more than one city. Now it's in Shenzhen, but actually there are other cities. Maybe we'll see that happening in the next few days.
Because for those who don't know, although every Chinese person does know, the real estate market in China is a really interesting scenario where the prices for things it's nothing unlike we've ever seen in the U.S. Even during the wild subprime mortgage thing, that makes what's happening in China seem very tame by comparison. So this company, China's biggest real estate company, imploding could have a domino effect, and things could get. People have predicted, by the way, even as Cal knows, if you read Disunited Nations, Peter Zeihan has been predicting that China is going to financially implode when this financial bubble pops. So this headline could be an early indicator of something rather tragic to happen, as the article itself says, that this could have systemic risk to the entire financial system of China.
They're kind of orchestrating a soft landing, right?
Right.
In the way they know. So that's what they're trying.
No doubt, I'm sure they'd want to avoid an economic collapse, but the real estate landscape there is so heavily tilted that it's like I said, it's on a scale that Americans are not familiar with. Now, I'm starting to understand how Europeans or people from smaller countries feel when they look at American economics, because it's like, what? How do those numbers make sense? So,
And Tyler, since now Xi Jinping is employing his common common prosperity for the third distribution, so there's no power pushing this Evergrande group, maybe from the government.
right, you had a follow-up article here from the Guardian, which was also dated today. So this is hot off the wire. It says Evergrande investors face a 75% decline as company edges closer to restructuring, meaning solvency or whatever. And analysts say massively indebted Chinese property group likely to be dismantled to avoid triggering market-wide panic. Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch.
And if I'm hearing BB right, correct me if I'm wrong, BB, you're implying that with the cover, a lot of these property companies, at least from my previous experience, was that property companies, a lot of the people in the government support these property companies and make money out of the property companies at a local level, at a city level, mayor level, other levels. There's lots of dealings that go on. I remember when we were buying properties for our five-star business to open stores, there were a lot of politicians involved in the process, in the sense that they were approvers, or they're on boards, or they're in committees, and BB's implying that am I correct that now the cover is gone? In other words, they won't be supported if they're involved in propping up prices or being involved in these investments. Their overall high level government cover is gone. It's BB, am I something like that? I heard you just
Yes,
say.
because for many real estate, actually they are building on the borrowed money. So as long as the bank are willing to lend money, so they can get a project going and going. So it's like a circle. So you get new money to cover the old money. But right now, since China and Tyler has covered a lot of the common prosperity, like crackdowns on the price of the houses as well. So I think it's a like two ends of the solution, which ends is the government putting on. So if they are trying to, like Tyler said, get the birth rate up, so they need to lower the price of the houses.
Yep.
But at the same time, Evergrande actually you can say many projects are not actually for people to leave. They are just a product and to get money. And that's the direct way to say it. Yeah. So
let me read.
I think okay, Kylie.
Yeah, it says Evergrande has been struggling to make or manage its enormous $300 billion debt pile for several years, but tougher regulations about debt levels brought in last year as part of Xi Jinping's drive against inequality has accelerated its crisis. A fireside sale of its properties has failed to dent the debt pile despite generous discounts. The property market has exploded in China in the past 2 decades. Total real estate sales were 2.5 trillion in 2019, or 10% of the country's entire economic output. I told you this is a bubble unlike any. These are way beyond American numbers. A disorderly failure of Evergrande would represent a serious risk to the whole Chinese economy, with the risk of contagion in the rest of the world. Another sign of the weakness of the sector came when shares of the office developer Soho China tumbled 35% on Monday, its biggest daily drop since listing more than 14 years ago, after the U.S. investment bank Blackstone scrapped a $3 billion takeover deal. Economists at the consultancy Capital Economics said the note, titled Evergrande Circling the Plug Hole, or Drain, that a banking failure triggered by the collapse of the major property developer was the single most likely scenario that could lead to a hard landing in China. So hard landing means economic, not collapse, but serious, the cards falling in on themselves. So it's
Tyler.
yes.
Can I just just a few sentences so I think so that you guys understand how the dilemma China is in. Just kind of answering Cal's question just now.
Yeah.
So on one hand, the property in China is so expensive that the central government wants to control it for the obvious reason, right? Because the cost of living is so high. If you want the people to have more kids, you want them to be able to afford housing. So central government would like to control the property prices. But on the other hand, the land sales belongs to the local government. Actually, land sales constitutes the majority of the budgets of the local government. So the local, without selling the land, local government have not enough budget to run its government. Now, so that's why there is a dilemma. The local government needs to sell land to maintain its
budget.
Local government budget, right? And the central government needs to keep the price down so that people can have babies. That's the dilemma.
Got it.
That's why also there is kind of some procedures of government is taking, there's some indications government is taking some of those power back to central instead of letting the local government have it.
Thank you for the clarification there. Ben Wong in Sydney also agrees that the default is coming. Given the large scale of the balance sheet, Evergrande is deemed as a systemic risk to the Chinese financial system. The authorities cannot afford to let it fail abruptly. We believe Evergrande is likely to collapse in a controlled manner. Okay, we'll keep an eye on that.
Well, Tyler, and just another kind of geopolitical question associated with that. So, I'm thinking about the ramifications for countries like Cambodia, like Laos, like Myanmar, where, the development or the construction of modern buildings has just exploded over the past 10 years. And I would say 98% of those buildings are owned by Chinese investors. And I just wonder, what percentage of those are owned by Evergrande. And so the article mentioned that there would be global ramifications. And I think that there are probably two tiers to that. One, you have countries like the ones that I've just mentioned where, they're incredibly dependent upon companies like Evergrande and their investments. And then the second piece is just the kind of secondary implications with should the Chinese economy crumble, and the ramifications that it would have worldwide. So, but yeah, it'll just be interesting to see what happens.
Nicholas, can you jump up here on this Oculus article that you just shared? Just inviting Nicholas up, but while he, let me know when he gets up.
When you invite him up, I just wanted to make a quick comment on what Lakeisha said. And it's different because it's China and I don't know Chinese laws, but I've done a lot of bankruptcy restructurings in the United States and Canada. So typically, the way it would happen here, you have different subsidiaries of a holding company, and so even when a company collapses, not every one of the subsidiaries collapse. So if they have a separate subsidiary in a foreign country that's doing the real estate, that balance sheet may be in better shape than the larger balance sheet. But that's a U.S. Canadian type of Western perspective. I have no idea what the Chinese government will do because they can do whatever they want when they decide they want to go take something over. So, it is conceptually possible by Western standards not to impact your foreign operations just because a domestic operation goes under.
Thanks for that, Ken.
And then was Nicholas able to join? No.
Yeah, he's on stage.
Hey there.
Hey, Nicholas. So this you just sent in a really interesting article about Oculus Quest Pro.
Yeah, so there seems to have been leaks from internal firmware documentation, just referring to specifics about the coming Quest Pro, which is interesting. It's the first solid sign that it's coming, and Facebook Oculus do have their conference coming up in 1.5 months.
Yeah, October-ish or November, yeah?
Yeah, October 28th.
Oh, just in time for Christmas.
Exciting. Yeah, and specifically it points to eye tracking and face tracking.
Oh, really?
So yeah, you will be able to have completely expressive avatars will be the user benefit on top of probably better, more effective processing and stuff. But of course, we know why Facebook would put those sensors in a machine, right?
Yeah,
On
of
location.
course. Yes, we do. So, yeah, it's $500 price point Oculus Pro, eye and face tracking. Anything else that's expected out of the Pro version?
Probably a different build because the regular Quest 2 is pretty cheaply made to stay cheap to buy, but this is probably the one that they can splurge on when it comes to build quality.
Cool. Okay, thank you for that. So the next one is from Evan from entrepreneur.com. This new company says it's bringing back the woolly mammoth as a way to fight climate change. And in the photo, you wouldn't know unless you follow genetics, but there's two gentlemen. I just tweeted this tweet from Evan to the Tech News Twitter account. The gentleman on the right is none other than Mr. George Church, who's
not a woolly mammoth, although he kind of looks like one.
He looks like Santa, but his name's George, and George Church is indeed, as the article says, world-renowned pioneer in genomics, and that's even putting it mildly. He is the Michelangelo, the Da Vinci of genetics, and he's
the guy who created. When COVID started, he sequenced it and created a vaccine and injected it in himself the first few weeks as a weekend hobby. So yeah, he's a pretty serious guy.
George is the only person really to take non-living material in a lab and make a living cell out of it. And he's the head of genomics at Harvard, and he's correctly considered the real leader in the field of genomics. And I spent
way too close to China, though.
Yeah,
way too close.
He's not. I can tell you, he's not actually a huge fan of China. Because
that's good. That's new. He's been cashing their checks for a long time.
I spent a weekend with George and Elon at SpaceX headquarters in a private meeting with Elon and George and Larry Page from Google and Nathan Myhrvold from Microsoft and Nassim Taleb of the Black Swan and Danny Hillis.
Never heard of them.
And there was only 3 or 4 other people. It was very private. Larry Page's wife was there as well. But we spent 2 days together, one weekend. And the main point George wanted to make was that China is moving way faster than we are. The U.S. System is not, we're kind of restricting. He was basically calling out the problem of funding by the U.S. for genetic research, and he says China understands the opportunity and they're spending appropriately, and America is not even allowing for stem cell research or let alone genetic editing type research. And so we're going to get smoked. Like, they're going to get all the advances, they're going to get all the IP, they're going to get everything, and we're just going to get screwed. And so that's why he had this room of tech billionaires in the room, and letting everyone know how big of an issue. Sean Parker was also in the room. And then he said that, this is a huge problem, like a really huge problem, like a really, 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 really huge problem that, I can't even go to a journalist with this. And then Sean Parker asked him, is this the biggest problem in genetics? And he said, no. And he says, oh, really? Well, there's a bigger problem? And he goes, yeah. And he said, well, what is that? And he says, well, the bigger problem is that the cost of genetic engineering is going down, 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 down every day, every week. And within the next few years, it will get cheap enough so that basically anybody who wants to bring back smallpox will be able to do so. And when you bring back smallpox, it's, a 50% mortality rate. You can make an airborne smallpox. Imagine COVID with a 50%, fatality rate. He said, that's coming. It's inevitable. There's nothing we can do about it. So that's what really keeps me up at night. That's the biggest problem in genetics, is we're going to have to deal with that in our lifetime. And but in the meantime, China's going to make all the advances. Oh, and by the way, somebody did make smallpox in a lab in China. So we have that to deal with. Fortunately,
So Dick Cheney was right. He was just early when he wanted to get everybody vaccinated again for smallpox after 9/11. He was just about 34 years early or something.
Well, I'm sure other people in the government have been briefed on this, genetic smallpox reality. So how to? I know that Bill Gates has, and that's why So also in the room I mentioned was Nathan Myhrvold, which is the head of, Bill Gates's best friend at Microsoft, and has been, kind of going back to the origins of Microsoft. And he's the real tech guru behind Bill Gates. And Nathan is also wanted to bring back the woolly mammoth, for example. So back to this headline.
Also very close to the Chinese and to Jeffrey Epstein, Nathan
Yeah.
Myhrvold.
And so Nathan being so close with Bill, about 9 months after that meeting at SpaceX, Bill Gates went and did a TED Talk about the coming pandemics. And it was one of Bill's famous TED Talk, one of his only TED Talk that Bill ever did was about coming pandemics. And we need to start preparing for them now. Now. This is a very real threat. And nobody took him seriously. And then COVID came, and every journalist said, "Oh, you predicted the pandemic's coming." And he's like, "Yeah, this isn't the pandemic I'm talking about. This is a beautiful gift of a rehearsal of a real pandemic, because there's no death in this COVID thing. This is 1% death. That ain't a real pandemic. I'm talking about a 50% mortality rate pandemic." That's what I was talking about at TED. That's what he's telling journalists now. That COVID, this has been beautiful. This is a perfect. Thank holy sweet Jesus. Thank you, God, for COVID, because this showed us how unprepared we are for the real pandemic that I did the TED Talk about, which is smallpox. So, yeah, so George Church is in the photo in this article that Evan just shared. The new company says it's bringing back the woolly mammoth as a way to fight climate change. The woolly mammoth was last seen 10,000 years ago during the Ice Age. Can bringing it back help cool our warming planet now? That's a bold idea put forward by a company called Colossal, a bioscience and genetics engineering company that launches today and is backed by Harvard University with some of the world's foremost forward-thinking scientists fighting climate change. With mammoths seems crazy, but it has decades of research behind it, including the work of George Church, a world-renowned pioneer in genomics. Church runs a lab at Harvard and has been exploring how to genetically re-engineer the woolly mammoth using its closely living relative, the Asian elephant. The reason is this. One of the greatest threats to the Earth is the melting of the Arctic permafrost and its massive release of the greenhouse gases that are stored safely in its freeze. When the herds of woolly mammoth and other animals vanished, that area became covered with forest that kept the Earth warmer. Church is betting on the idea that the resurrected population of mammoths, if let loose in the Arctic, would chomp and stomp down the bush and trees, exposing the Earth to sub-zero temperatures and allowing the tundra's original grasslands to grow back. That ecosystem, maintained by large creatures, would then effectively sequester carbon rather than allowing it back into the atmosphere. In the process of reviving the mammoth, Colossus says, it will also develop technologies that can help people and the planet in a multitude of other ways. We found a way to harness CRISPR's power for species de-extinction, Church says. However, the gene editing has the potential to impact all aspects of life, from animal de-extinction and ecosystem restoration to disease prevention and creating more sustainable human bodies. And of course, humans will be able to reunite with one of our most romanticized extinct animals, the shaggy creature with magnificent tusks that swoop like a double staircase. Although Church has been doing this research for years, it wasn't until a big thinking Texan serial entrepreneur named Ben Lamb came along that anyone created a company to put it into practice. So here it comes. And of course, you're wondering, can they do T-Rex? Of course, they could do T-Rex. So,
and also, woolly mammoth meat is delicious. Really good brisket. So, another side bonus.
Tyler,
Is there
going back
anybody who
to
doesn't see like a bad, the ending to this coming out somehow with everybody running for their lives? There's not anybody who thinks that.
Tyler, going back to your smallpox scenario.
Okay.
Yesterday, North Korea launched a cruise missile, which I think I tweeted to Tech TNTW.
Yep.
I'm wondering, so countries like that could easily do the kind of damage and put it in a cruise missile type thing. They don't need to have nuclear if they have something like that. Just a thought.
Yeah, transporting it is kind of trivial, yeah. So the next tweet, we got a whole bunch of tweets. Jeff just sent in that we have a new victim of Black Matter, is the hacking outfit who has picked up doing the big ransomware attacks, and now their newest target is Olympus. Black Matter set up in the wake of the Colonial Pipeline and Ksenia attacks, which drew a threat of action from the United States government. Technology giant Olympus hit by Black Matter ransomware. And then the next one is from Monica, that southeastern China reports new coronavirus outbreak. China's southeastern Fujian province on Sunday registered 20 new COVID cases, according to the National Health Commission. In the statement, they said 20 indigenous cases in Fujian, 19 in Putian, and 1 in Guangzhou, including 1 confirmed case converting from an asymptomatic case. And John Karp sends in this one, that the iPhone 13 versus the iPhone 14, rumored design differences, specs, and more. The iPhone 13 hasn't even come out yet, but the 2022 iPhone 14 are already circulating. How will it differ from the iPhone 13? And it's namely, it won't have a notch anymore on the front. It'll just have a pinhole in the corner. And what else? iPhone 14 details, I just tweeted it out if you want to dive into that one. And then from Reuters, China has too many auto companies now. Consolidation needed. China's industry minister said on Monday that currently there are too many auto companies in China and consolidation in the industry is needed. And then Evan sends in this one, that Israel all-electric airplane maker readies for its first flight. New age of aviation, according to the Times of Israel. The next one...
Yeah, its first customer is Cape Air, commercially, who's in my neck of the woods, serving New England. So that'll be exciting to ride on probably next year.
Cool. Evan, you have this next one. England will be the first country to require new homes to include EV chargers. The British government's going to require all newly built homes and offices to feature electronic vehicle chargers in England.
Yeah, smart.
And then you have the next one. Wi-Fi 7 is on the horizon. It will be a game changer, and it could arrive ahead of schedule, as Wi-Fi 6 is still rolling out.
So it'll be 5 times faster than 6, plus much better QoS and good for industrial use, as well as like gaming, latency, all that kind of thing.
Lower latency, and faster is better. So the next one's from Gareth. How do consumers feel about the metaverse? I just tweeted out, and it says the term metaverse continues to be a runaway train in the AR and VR sectors, though it has legitimate principles and promise. Most notably, it's been obscured through overuse and marketing speak. But beyond tech visionaries, how do real consumers feel, whether they know it or not? Many already engage in metaverse-like experiences such as Roblox and Fortnite. A new report from Newzoo polls users on such sentiments, which we're spotlighting here. 38% of consumers who play massive online games like Roblox and Fortnite often or occasionally enter these words to socialize rather than play the games themselves. Geographically speaking, the above behavior is more common in China, 58%, and the US 34%, in the UK 27%, and Japan 23% is where these games are currently being played. As for aspirational sentiments among those interested in non-game activities, like socializing and attending virtual concerts, 56% are male, 42% are female. Among those metaverse interested respondents, the biggest age group is 25 to 34. and then 35 to 44. So it's obviously as you get younger, you get less interested. And there's a whole bunch of data here. Wow, this goes on for quite a while. So if you're interested in the data of the metaverse, you can just check out the tweet I just twatted. And
Tyler,
then, yes.
Did you get the breaking news that, remember at the beginning, you guys were talking about the Walmart accepting Litecoin? It's a fake news.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The Walmart accepting Litecoin is a fake news. You got it already?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
That was
Yes,
it.
sorry.
30% rise in Litecoin prices based on this. Who thought Walmart's going to use
bullshit
Litecoin?
again?
That's hysterical.
Okay, so the next one up is from RCC via Bloomberg. Racist emojis are the latest test for Facebook. Twitter moderators. The industry says dealing with the pictographs is a technical challenge, but critics say the companies are making it harder than it has to be. Racist emojis? According to Bloomberg. Facebook and Twitter faced wide criticism for taking too long to screen out the wave of racist abuse during the summer's Euro Cup Championship. Emojis have emerged as a stumbling block. When Apple introduced emojis with different skin tones in 2015, the tech giant came under criticism for enabling racist commentary. A year later, Indonesia's government drew complaints after it demanded social networks remove LGBTQ-related emojis. Some emojis, including the one depicting a bag of money, have been linked to anti-Semitism. Black soccer players have been frequently targeted. The Professional Footballers Association and Data Science of Signify conducted a study last year of racially abusive tweets depicted at players and found that 29% included some form of emoji. Over the past decade, the roughly 3,000 pictographs or emojis that constitute emoji language have been a vital part of online communication. Today, it's hard to imagine a text message conversation without them. The ambiguity that is part of their charm doesn't come without problems, though. A winking face can indicate a joke or a flirtation. Courts end up debating issues such as whether it counts as a threat to send someone an emoji of a pistol. The matter is confusing to human lawyers, but it's even more confounding for computer-based language models. Some of these algorithms are trained on databases that contain few emojis. A doctoral researcher at the Oxford Internet Institute. These models treat emojis as new characters, meaning the algorithms must start from scratch in analyzing their meaning based on context. It's a new emerging trend, so people are not aware of it as much, and the models lag behind humans. Who's the engineer manager of the team at Google's Jigsaw, which develops algorithms to flag abusive speech online. What matters is how frequently they appear in your test and training data. Her team's working on 2 new projects that could improve analysis on emojis, one that involves mining vast amounts of data to understand trends in language, and another that factor in uncertainty. Tech companies have cited technical complexity to obscure more straightforward solutions to many of the most common abuses, according to critics. Most usage isn't ambiguous, says Hate Lab. We need not just better AI going forward, but bigger and better moderation teams, which is music to the ears of the moderating companies who make $500 million a year, literally from Facebook. Accenture makes $500 million a year moderating Facebook. So I'm sure Accenture is thrilled that this think tank thinks that we need more humans to deal with the emojis. Yes?
I'm just wondering, so like the bag of money or thing like that, I had no idea that was like a racist thing. I mean, it seems like it's all about context, and can that actually be programmed into some AI search module, or even like people who, like, it's like knowing gang signs, right? It's just scribbling unless you know what they are. So I mean, like people have used an eggplant and it didn't mean, like, what it commonly means now. So how does that even work when it's contextual in AI?
Who knows?
So just pick another one, right? Like that's all will happen. It'll be like, okay, now it's like, the up arrow or something like that. I mean,
Yeah,
they're just gonna pick something else.
correct. That's exactly right. I mean, it's like trying to police language, and it's like people are going to come up with you can't police language. It's just not policeable, whether it's text or spoken. So, yeah, I don't know what the end goal here is.
Yay for Accenture, maybe.
Yes, whoever, they are the only winners in this.
Alexander, you made me laugh so hard the other day when you said Mark Zuckerberg's Earth-sized pot of gold for his baby. I think Accenture has an Earth-sized pot of gold they want to preserve. So
So the last quote says, "We've all got hand-wringing and regret, but they didn't do anything, which is why we have the why we have to these actions may not be sufficient to quell critics. Professional athletes speaking out about the racist abuse they face has become yet another factor in the broader march towards potential government regulation of social media. We've all got hand-wringing and regret, but they didn't do anything, which is why we have to legislate," says Damien Collins, a UK Parliament member who's leading work on an online safety bill. If people that have an interest in generating harmful content can see that the platforms are particularly ineffective at spotting the use of emojis, then we will see more and more emojis being used in that context. Which he's correct. And he's acknowledging and conceding the fact that language will evolve, that you can't police it. And you can try and legislate it all you want. Your kids and their slang evolves 1,000 times faster than you as a government do with policies about policing their language. So that is a useless battle. And to the professional athletes speaking out about the racist abuse they face, you need better blocking algorithms of individuals. You need better policing tools about banning bad actors on the profile, on the accounts, not policing their actual language, or ask for identity verification, because likely that would likely stop a lot of the racist or bad behavior. Ken?
Hey, Tyler, if Accenture is running Facebook's moderation, given that article we read earlier from the Wall Street Journal about how they're exempting, celebrities and certain people, if Accenture is found to be complicit in that's going to be a problem for them too, right?
That's interesting, yeah. Okay, the next one up is from Gareth. That it says, "Meet the wild avatars of new Fox singing competition called Alter Ego." And this is a wild new, I have to say, kudos to Fox for really pioneering a whole new concept of a TV show. It's like American Idol or X Factor or America's Got Talent, but with like these augmented reality avatars. So the performers come out on stage in an augmented reality avatar of their own creation. It's kind of a wild concept. And with the article I'm tweeting out from Gareth, you can now see what these avatars look like of this first batch of creators on this new show called Alter Ego. The next one's from Cheryl from the Next Web. It says, "Data science students don't know a lot about ethics, and that's a problem. Undergraduate training for data scientists, dubbed the sexiest job of the 21st century by Harvard Business Review, falls short in preparing students for the ethical use of data science," the new study found. "We found most programs dedicated considerable coursework to mathematics, statistics, and computer science, but little training in ethical considerations." Okay, the next one, also from Cheryl, also from the Next Web, says, "Decolonizing the internet starts with looking at media history. Is it possible to decolonize today's largest global communications platform? To decolonize the internet is to recognize the history of colonialism and its omnipresence even within systems and platforms that are most progressive. Historically, the media institutions were at the service of the colonizing empire, both in how they were modeled and used. They were meant to advance the ideology of colonizers in colonies. Today, some print and electronic media remain at the service of coloniality and imperialism. They play out colonialism's legacy of coloniality, the patterns of power that persist long and after the end of formal colonialism. This process has a regressive effect. It betrays the progressive role that is generally associated with media institutions as spaces for sharing ideas and knowledge about modern societies. This leads me to ask, is it possible to decolonize today's largest global communication platform, the Internet? There is no linear approach to the process, but any attempts must start with looking at how the Internet spreads knowledge and ideas about Africa and Africans. Decolonization to me is moving away from seeing the world today as a universe and instead viewing it as a pluriverse, multiple worlds existing side by side, accompanied by people actively working to emancipate themselves from the colonial power imbalances that have characterized the modern world. That is what the Internet should be, a communication tool that fairly represents these plural verses.
Do they give any examples of what that is? Of what that, by the way, impressive conjugation use of colony.
Yes.
That's a lot of different conjugations that I had never considered. It was impressive. But do they give any examples of what they mean by that? Is that because there are dominant platforms, or what do they mean?
Here's the closest I could find. Today, the Internet is, for many societies, the default distributor of ideas, quote-unquote facts, opinions, and various known systems. It is also the default gatekeeper of knowledge in modern society. The Internet literally spreads ideas about oneself or one another, particularly about one another, in keeping with the power structures of the global order, global south versus global north, the colonial subject versus the colonizing subject. The ideas spread by the Internet could mean that one is seen to be, for instance, lacking in morals, evil, a savage, and uncivilized. This is real power. This is the real power of the Internet as a communication medium. It buttresses or disrupts knowledge about the world. Africa, then, has played a limited role in the Internet as a carrier of knowledge, so it is reasonable to argue that the knowledge carried by the Internet on Africa and Africans needs to be continuously interrogated. What needs to be further probed is whether or not the Internet disrupts the narrative on Africa as explained by the West and colonial societies, or does it entrench those narratives and understandings? The coloniality of knowledge within the context of, this is like somebody writing a academic paper. To begin to decolonize the Internet, to me, means to recognize the history of colonialism and its omnipresence even within the systems and platforms that are meant to be progressive. It is to understand coloniality of knowledge and come to terms with aspects of the hidden and the invisible power matrix in the world today. It means recognizing the uneven distribution of access to the Internet and what it means for those who contributes most to the Internet as a source of knowledge. It is to understand how this undermines those whom the world has traditionally designated as the unseen and the unheard.
That is completely, remarkably not helpful at all. It does sound like someone's term paper.
Yes. Well, it's written by the associate professor and chair of the department from the University of South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, I think essentially what the author is saying is that, when you look at the diffusion of technology, it came from, kind of the Western point of view, and you think about which voices are most prevalent in terms of shaping the information that is contained, even though the internet itself is somewhat democratized. There are imbalances of power in terms of which types of voices are amplified and which types of voices, i.e. publications or other outlets, are marginalized. So I think that's what the person is saying, just based on what you've said. But it's almost midnight here, so I'm not. That's just my caveat.
So a lot of people reporting that Walmart is not accepting Litecoin. Amazon, and then Alexandra sends in this one from CNET that Amazon's wholesale business targeted an expanding antitrust suit. We touched on that earlier with the Washington, D.C. Attorney General is expanding the lawsuit. And the next one is from Aaron about TikTok, who recently acquired a VR company called Pico, a competitor to Oculus. And now they are launching, this is the new headline today, ByteDance launches an avatar app called Pixel in Southeast Asia. TikTok owner ByteDance launched an avatar creating app called Pixel in Southeast Asia markets last week. So no doubt those play together because you're going to need avatars that you create in the metaverse. And the question is, who's colonizing the metaverse? Especially if we're all avatars. That's a question I would never have considered until I read that last article. So the next one is from Renjint. About the Ola factory, which is going to be run exclusively by women. It says, proud to share that the Ola future factory will be run entirely by women, 10,000 plus at full scale. It'll be the largest all-women factory in the world. Thank you for that, Renjant. And the next one's from, who is this one here? Katarina sends in this one, that how the brain's motor system can support vocabulary learning. A transcranial magnetic stimulation study revealed the motor cortex may play a role in translating foreign language words into one's native tongue. Wow. Also, small, mighty robots mimic the powerful punch of a mantis shrimp. Engineers have created a new robot that models the mechanics of the strong punch of the mantis shrimp. And when robot eyes gaze back at humans, something changes in our brain. This is a weird one. Here we go. So when you know you're being watched by somebody, it's hard to pretend they're not there. It can be difficult to block them out and keep focus, feeling their gaze bearing down upon you. Strangely enough, it doesn't even seem to really matter whether they're alive or not. In a new research, scientists set up an experiment where people playing a game against a robot. If the robot looked at the human players during the session, it ended up affecting the participants' behavior and strategy in the game, a change that could be discerned in measurements of their neural activity recorded by electroencephalography, EEG, during the experiment. If the robot looks at you during the moment you need to make a decision on the next move, you will have a more difficult time in making the decision, says cognitive neuroscientist from the Italian Institute of Technology. Your brain will also need to employ effortful and costly process to try and ignore the gaze of the robot. In the experiment, 40 participants sat across from an iCub humanoid robot competing in a game of chicken on a horizontal computer screen in which two simulated cars rushed head-on towards one another. The results of the experiment showed that the robot's return gaze didn't influence the choices individual human players made, but it did cause the response times to slightly increase, with participants generally responding faster in the game when the iCub averted its eyes. In line with our hypothesis, the delayed responses within subjects after mutual gaze may suggest that mutual gaze entitled a higher cognitive effort, for example, by eliciting more reasoning about iCub's choices, or a higher degree of suppression of the gaze stimulus, which was irrelevant to the task. So we're affected by whether or not robots are making eye contact with us.
Mutual gaze with a robot.
Yeah. And then Evan sends in this one about Apple co-founder Wozniak announces a cryptic space startup. Apple II designer Steve Wozniak has announced work to solve problems people face. His space startup is looking to solve one for humanity. Which is what, Evan?
Further details to come.
It doesn't really indicate yet?
No.
Okay. To be continued. The next one, also from Evan, from Reuters, Britain begins world's largest trial of blood test for 50 types of cancer.
I'd love maybe Heyman, you could talk about that, how revolutionary this would be. Or one of the other docs.
Yeah. Well, we'll bring that. By the way, let's hold on to that then, because that room starts in about 15 minutes. Heyman, is Heyman on stage? He is. Heyman? Mr. Heyman, calling Heyman. Dr. Heyman.
Sorry, I was just running between errands here.
That's right. You want to start your room? Because I've got about 6 headlines to go.
Oh, you want me to start the Canadian tech?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, it's Canadian tech today, not MedTech, yeah?
No, MedTech is tomorrow, actually.
Okay. Well, go ahead and start it anyways. But we've got a good one. Evan's got a great one for the MedTech room tomorrow. And that's a reminder for everyone to follow the Tech News Club at the top here. Click on the title of the room because we have, right after this, we're going into the Canadian Tech room with Heyman. And then tomorrow, Heyman, we might not have MedTech tomorrow because we have the live stream for the Apple event.
Right. Okay, yeah. So we'll schedule that. And we also have on Friday, we've got Chris Fung leading the talk on health and infrastructure.
Okay, cool.
Architecture, healthcare architecture.
Hey, what are your thoughts on this universal cancer blood test?
Tech news.
How revolutionary would that be?
I don't think he's familiar with it.
I think he's gone, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he just went to go start the room. So I tweeted out the article. It says Britain's state-run National Health Service will on Monday begin the world's biggest trial of Grail's flagship Galleri blood test that can be used to detect up to 50 types of cancer. That would be lovely. The next one says Paragon looks to hydrogen engines for its ultra-long range electric vertical takeoff and landing. But if it's electric, it's not. It's hydrogen. So it's either hydrogen or electric. Either way, it's vertical takeoff and landing, like drone.
Probably hydrogen.
Tyler, the blood test thing, just to say, the results won't be known for till 2023 on the 140,000 people who are going to participate in it. And if that is proved positive, then they'll do 1 million people test.
Okay.
So it's 5 years away.
Okay. And you were saying, Chris?
I totally spaced at this point.
That's right. The next one is from Eric. From Hacker News, a high severity remote code execution has been identified in Pack Resolver. Okay. Then Dr. Fran sent in one from the Wall Street Journal. Digital addictions are drowning us in dopamine. Rising rates of depression and anxiety in wealthy countries like the U.S. may be a result of our brains getting hooked on the neurotransmitter associated with positive responses, dopamine, because the games are actually engineered to trigger exactly that. And it's not natural. So we are, just like our bodies were not designed for the modern sugar carbohydrate diet, neither is our bodies designed for all of the dopamine that we're getting from technology. So
TNATW excluded. Here we like our dopamine.
Yeah.
Served by Tyler.
We're doing more of a serotonin thing over here. But Monica sends in one about the Southeastern China reports coronavirus. We covered that. Thank you, Monica. And Renjin sent in one that's Scalapay, a buy now, pay later technology provider that has made significant headway with retailers and consumers in the EU, just raised another $155 million. They're all making money. Buy now, pay later. You can't lose. The next one from Florian from Forbes, the top 5 trends in AI, how to prepare for AI access. The strategic importance of AI is growing at an accelerated pace. Many companies are reaping the rewards of AI now and will increase their investments for the foreseeable future, because AI is the key to asymmetric wealth accumulation for the foreseeable future. The next one's from Rhonda from the Washington Post, that Texas wanted to be the high-tech haven of the U.S. Its new abortion bill and other measures are now putting that at risk. Tech workers are making Texas off the list of places they'd consider working after the state passed the nation's most restrictive abortion law. And lastly, this really interesting article from the New York Times. Actually, there's 2 more articles. It says phony diagnoses hide the high rates of drugging at nursing homes. At least 21% of nursing home residents are on antipsychotic drugs, a Times investigation has found. And how basically old folks are being put on antidepressants, or antipsychotics rather, at 21% of them. And so now the data is showing that a whole bunch of elderly folks in these homes are being diagnosed with schizophrenia seems very strange. Why would there be a change in the rate of people with schizophrenia? Why? And does this have something to do with these phony diagnoses of putting people on antipsychotics? It's a troubling investigation by the New York Times, but we're going to wait for the MedTech room to do the real proper deep dive on that one. And
So for those in the room, the gist is that in order to keep those patients a little bit more compliant, it seems like they may be leaning on this medication.
And then the last one today is from Katarina from Wired, that neurograins could be the next brain-computer interfaces. Dozens of microchips scattered all over the cortical surface might allow researchers to listen in on thousands of neurons at the same time. So more vaccines for you, sir. Because we got to fill your wet noodle full of micrograins. Each grain has enough microelectronics stuffed into it so that when embedded in neural tissue, it can listen to neuronal activity on the one hand, and then can also transmit it as a tiny little radio to the outside world, says lead author Arto Neuromico, a neuroengineer at Brown University who led the development of the neurograins. The system, known as brain-computer interfaces, is designed in a paper published August 12th by Nature Electronics, alongside other Brown researchers, as well as collaborators from Baylor and University of California, San Diego, and Qualcomm. Neuromico began working on neurograins 4 years ago with initial funding from the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. So far, the researchers have only tested the neurograins in rodents, but they hope their prototype will lay the groundwork for human studies. In addition to the recording of brain activity, the neurograins can also stimulate neurons with tiny electrical pulses, making them an intriguing avenue to explore for treating brain disorders like epilepsy, Parkinson's, or restoring brain function lost to injury. True. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Something from a defense-related company that goes into your brain and transmits signals from what you're saying. Like, this is what the woolly mammoth thing. Are there no ethics classes or like scary movies ever played to these people? Do they not have
Why? What could go wrong?
This
Possibly.
is bad.
No problems at all. Neurograins, they can get signals and send signals and can control your brain. And it's brain-computer interface. They hook it up to the matrix. Next thing you know, you have a whole new reality.
We're a bunch of gooey batteries, right?
Yes. It's going to be fun.
You know what's interesting also, I don't know if this was mentioned in the Wired article, but it was Qualcomm's microchips.
Yes, Qualcomm and UCSD, which are across the street from each other practically. Going to be very interesting. Yes, Aaron.
For me, on the BCI side, I see that as web. If we see metaverse as Web 3.0, I'm seeing BCI as Web 4.0.
Sure.
All the research we're looking at I know we're being satirical in saying about jacking up to the matrix and stuff, but I'm a fundamental believer. We're doing a big research thing now on zero interfaces. Zuckerberg mentioned back in July that, why do we need monitors? Why do we need, screens, TVs, etc.? In the future, why do we need any hardware? If we're jacked up to the cloud, if we're instantly connected, then we've got zero interfaces.
Right up to the Starlink, just the laser right to your brain.
Maybe we'll be able to get further as a society because we'll actually know what each other's thinking instead of trying to parse their words and how was it delivered and how am I feeling when I hear them. Who knows?
But you think you'll think better of people if you know what they're thinking, especially about you? Like, I feel like I will have no friends. I mean, that's like the one filter that you give people is that internal world that they don't have to publicize or share. Like the lack of an internal world, that was 1984, right? Like the doublethink. That's the problem.
I think it's more like that you could send a thought. I'm hoping that we can get there because sometimes you get jumbled up in words, you need to show PowerPoints, etc. I'm wondering if you could ever do that. I don't know, Shetta.
This is an interesting area to watch, the BCI industry, also known as BMI, brain machine interfaces. If some of the key startups are like Kernel with Brian Johnson of the PayPal, who sold basically the equivalent of Venmo to PayPal. That was a Braintree at the time. And then Thomas Oxley, Synchron Inc., Elon Musk's Neuralink. But also, I don't think a lot of people realize this, but a lot of publicly listed companies are involved in the BCI space. So you have Medtronic, which is listed on the New York Stock Exchange, Boston Scientific Corporation, also on the New York Stock Exchange, Abbott Labs, Nevro Corporation, Live Novo, and NDI, which stands for Neuro Device Innovations Medical, are just a few. And then within the ecosystem to watch, there's at least, I would say, about 28 to 29 startups that are really making progress. I mean, this is an emerging market that's expected to reach $3.7 billion in revenue and grow at an annual compound growth rate of 15.5% between 2020 and 27, according to Grandview Research. So this is an exciting arena, and within that, interestingly enough, the region with the preponderance of market share is projected. Well, at least in 2019, it wasn't projected. It was North America with almost 40% at a 39.7%.
Cool. The next one here is from CNN, from Jeff G. Typhoon forces two of China's busiest ports to suspend some operations. A typhoon that swept its way through East Asia is now forcing two of the world's busiest ports in China to suspend some operations, causing even further global logistics delays. Fantastic. So the next one's from Anita from Fast Company. That Facebook has a culture problem, but not the one people think it has. The problem has not been that the company is a cult. The problem is the end to which that cult has been dedicated. Okay, so I just tweeted that one out. And then Jeff G sends in this one from CNET that Zoom is adding live translation services, more hybrid work features. Zoom unveils a number of upgrades to the video chat platform to help coworkers connect whether they're in offices or working remotely. Live translation, fantastic. Then you could really do more remote hiring. And then Professor Ossoff sends in this one from Reuters that Stanford professors urge the U.S. to end a program looking for Chinese spies in academia. A group of Stanford University professors has asked the Justice Department to stop looking for Chinese spies at the U.S. universities. And Jeff sends in our last one today from the Telegraph. Electronic cars will need to be taxed to make up for lost fuel taxes. The Prime Minister's commitment to phase out petrol and diesel cars and vans by 2030 will leave the Treasury with a $40 billion black hole. Good times.
But I thought the taxes were to keep us from driving gas cars. And then I'll shut up.
So, but they'll also, now they don't have to subsidize oil anymore once we get to that point, hopefully. So that brings us to the end of the tweets. We did it yet again. So congrats, everybody. Thank you, everybody. And we're going to go over and hang out with our friend Heyman, who just opened up the Tech News Room. Thank you, everybody.